my beloved one. Pause everything and lean in, because what I am about to reveal to you carries the weight of eternity pressing gently against this very moment. This is urgent. Don't wait another second, because your spirit is standing at a crossroads you can no longer ignore. I am calling you into a truth that has been stirring beneath the surface of your life, a truth that will not remain silent any longer. Hear me now, for what comes next is meant to awaken you, realign you, and draw you into the life you were never meant to delay. Listen to me closely, because what I am about to say to you is not casual, not optional, not something you can file away for later and forget. This is urgent, and I am speaking directly to your heart in this very moment. You have treated time as though it endlessly stretches before you, as though you can always return to the things you keep postponing. But I tell you, the time you keep waiting for is the time you are living in right now. I have chosen this exact moment, these exact breaths you are taking, to press upon you a weight that is not meant to crush you, but to awaken you. You have felt it, haven't you? The tug you can't quite explain, that unrest inside your soul every time you try to ignore me and carry on as usual. You scroll, you distract, you bury yourself in noise. But when the noise quiets, my voice rises again, gentle yet unrelenting, because I love you too much to let you sleepwalk through the life I have given you. You have whispered to yourself, I'll deal with this later, I'll surrender when things calm down, I'll seek God when I have more time. But child, you do not see what I see. You see days, I see destinies. You see minutes, I see the story of your entire life. You treat your hesitations as small things, but those small hesitations are shaping who you are becoming. While you wonder if you should respond to me, battles are being fought over your mind, your heart, your future. You think delay is neutral, but delay is not neutral. It leans you subtly toward the life you never intended to live. I am not here to condemn you for waiting. I am here to rescue you from waiting any longer. I am here now, not yesterday, not someday, now, and I am holding before you an invitation that carries more weight than you realize. I am inviting you to step out of your drifting, out of your numbness, out of your constant almost obedience and halfway surrender. I am inviting you to stop treating my voice as background music and start recognizing it as the sound of life itself. You have been asking me for change. God, do something, God. Fix this, God. Move in my life. And I have heard every cry, every sigh, every tear-soaked whisper. But hear me. The change you have been asking me for is wrapped inside the response I am asking from you right now. You cannot move forward while standing still. You cannot walk into a new season while clinging to the comforts of the old one. You cannot keep saying one day when I am saying today. This urgency you feel is not panic, it is purpose. It is me leaning in, calling your name, telling you that you have reached a turning point, and the way you respond to me in this moment will echo far beyond this day. I am not pointing at the clock to pressure you. I am pointing at your heart to protect you. Do not wait another second to open it fully to me. Feel the truth of this moment settle into you, because I am drawing your attention to something you've tried to overlook for far too long. You've carried burdens so heavy that parts of you stopped believing relief was even possible. You've held responsibilities, fears, memories, and expectations in your hands until your fingers trembled under the pressure. Yet you told yourself, I can go a little longer. You have become so used to functioning under strain that you barely notice the toll it takes on your emotions, your decisions, your ability to rest, and even your ability to hope. But I see clearly what you've learned to hide, both from others and from yourself. I see the conversations you rehearse in your mind. I see the disappointments you never expressed aloud. I see the unresolved thoughts that linger in the background of your days, stealing your energy and clouding the joy you want to feel. I see every moment you force yourself to be strong when what you truly need is space to breathe. And while you have accepted the weight as normal, I never intended for it to be permanent. You do not realize how deeply these burdens have shaped the way you move through your life. They affect the way you respond to opportunities, the way you expect outcomes, the way you brace yourself for pain even in moments that are meant to bring peace. They have created a quiet distance between who you are and who I designed you to become. And yet, even with all this strain, you hesitate to release it. Part of you fears that if you loosen your grip, everything will fall apart. Another part fears that if you drop what you've been carrying, you won't know who you are without the struggle. You have wrapped your identity around survival, but I am inviting you into a life beyond mere endurance. I am not asking you to ignore reality. I am asking you to recognize that not all of what you carry is meant to be carried by you. Some of it belongs in my hands. Some of it needs to be surrendered, not solved. Some of it needs release, not resistance. Freedom is not a distant promise, waiting for a better season. It is a present offer, unfolding the moment you stop trying to do everything alone. When you choose to release what weighs you down, you make room for restoration. You make space for fresh clarity, renewed strength, and a sense of direction that has been buried beneath years of emotional clutter. This is why I urge you not to delay. You have been praying for transformation, and this moment holds the beginning of it. I am not asking you to carry less. I am inviting you to let me carry more. The freedom I offer is not theoretical. It is deeply personal, and it begins the moment you choose to trust me with what has exhausted you for far too long. Something in you has always sensed that you were meant for more than the place where you presently stand. You have whispered prayers in the dark, asking for change, asking for direction, asking for breakthrough. You have felt the spark of possibility, the stirring of desire, the hope that maybe things could shift if you just dared to believe again. But every time you approach the threshold of transformation, something inside you hesitates. Your spirit reaches forward, yet your fears pull you backward. You stand in the doorway, close enough to see the life I've prepared for you, yet unable to step into it because uncertainty whispers louder than courage. You tell yourself, what if I fail? What if I'm not enough? What if I lose what little stability I have? And without realizing it, you let fear talk you out of the very change you prayed for. You've asked me to open doors, and I have. You've asked me to guide you, and I have. You've asked me to bring clarity, and I have placed it right in front of you. The issue is not the absence of opportunity. It is the presence of hesitation. You've learned to carefully examine every possibility, weighing risks, predicting outcomes, trying to guarantee safety before stepping forward. This mindset has protected you in the past, but now it prevents you from moving into the future you desire. Standing still feels safer than stepping out, yet deep down you know that staying where you are is slowly draining you of life, purpose, and joy. Fear has convinced you that movement is dangerous, but remaining unchanged is far more costly. It keeps you cycling through the same patterns, wrestling with the same disappointments, replaying the same internal battles. You want transformation, but transformation requires a step, a real, tangible, faith-filled step. And I am walking with you as you take it. You are not stepping into the unknown alone. You are not stepping toward uncertainty without my presence surrounding you. You are stepping into what I have already prepared. The path may feel unfamiliar, but it is not unsafe. It is not random. It is not reckless. It is intentional, and every part of it holds purpose. So I call you forward, not with pressure, not with force, but with invitation. You have lingered long enough at the edge of breakthrough. You have envisioned change long enough without experiencing it. The doorway you stand in is not a place to settle. It is a place to pass through. Your next level is not waiting on clearer circumstances. It is waiting on a willing heart. Step through and watch what unfolds. Transformation does not happen when fear disappears. It happens when courage becomes stronger than hesitation. Let this truth reach the deepest places within you. I am not distant, delayed, or waiting for a better moment to meet you. I am here with you in the fullness of this very breath. You have lived with the idea that my presence comes and goes, that you must do something impressive or holy to draw near to me. But I have been beside you in every quiet moment, every confused thought, every tired sigh. I have watched you reach out only halfway toward me because part of you still wonders if I will take your hand when you extend it. But I am telling you now, with a clarity that leaves no room for doubt, that my hand is already reaching for yours. I do not wait for your perfection. I do not wait for your strength. I do not wait for you to feel worthy. I come to you as you are, in the raw truth of this moment. You've told yourself, I'll seek God more when things settle down, when I'm less overwhelmed, when I feel more spiritual, when I'm ready to commit. But readiness does not arrive from waiting. It arrives from encounter. And I am offering you that encounter now. You don't need to climb out of your struggles first. You need only to let me in. You don't need to organize your emotions before turning to me. You simply need to take my hand. When you do, something shifts. Not in a dramatic flash, not in theatrics, but in a steady, grounding assurance that you are no longer walking alone. Understand this. I am not calling you into a momentary feeling. I am inviting you into a connection that anchors your entire life. My hand brings clarity where confusion has clouded your steps. My hand brings steadiness where anxiety shakes your confidence. My hand brings healing where old wounds keep reopening. You have tried to navigate complexities on your own, believing that involving me requires a level of readiness you don't feel you have. But this is the moment where everything begins to change. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Now. When I take your hand, I do not pull you hardly or rush you beyond your capacity. I walk with you at the pace your heart can handle. I guide you through decisions you've been afraid to make. I stand with you in conversations you dread. I strengthen you in areas where you feel weakest. You are not supposed to figure out life in isolation. You were not created to manage everything with limited strength. You are made to walk with me, to lean on me, to experience life with my presence woven into every step. So take my hand now, not symbolically, not theoretically, but sincerely. Let it be the beginning of a new closeness between us. This moment is not small. It is holy. And once you grasp my hand, you will feel the certainty you have been missing, the certainty that you are guided, supported, and loved in ways deeper than you have ever dared to imagine. Consider how quickly everything can change the moment you allow yourself to stop resisting what I have been trying to do within you. You often imagine transformation as a slow process, something that requires years of effort or countless steps before any real breakthrough can occur. But there are moments in your life when change happens the very instant you allow your heart to soften. You have stood at the edge of surrender many times, feeling the pull to release your fears, your expectations, and your guardedness, yet part of you still clings to the belief that yielding means losing control. You hold back pieces of yourself, hoping to maintain stability by managing your own inner world, but that effort drains you more than you realize. Yielding to me is not a threat to your identity. It is the gateway to discovering who you truly are. You have no idea how quickly your perspective can shift, how deeply your wounds can begin healing, how strongly your spirit can awaken when you stop bracing yourself against my presence. There are changes you have prayed for that cannot happen through effort alone. They require a release. You may feel uncertain about what you're stepping into. But uncertainty is not a barrier when your heart opens. The moment you yield, even slightly, I begin rearranging the weight inside you. I lift the tightness you've carried in your thoughts. I realign areas where fear has twisted your expectations. I open doors you never noticed and close ones that were draining you without your awareness. You often assume I need time to prepare blessings for you, but many of those blessings are already prepared. The only thing delaying them is the tension between your longing and your hesitancy. When you finally let go, even for a single breath, everything I have been building on your behalf begins flowing freely. Yielding is not passive. It is the most powerful decision your heart can make. It means accepting that you do not need to create your own healing. It means acknowledging that you do not need to force a breakthrough by pushing through your limits. It means trusting me enough to stop resisting the very transformation you keep asking me to bring. When your heart yields, you create space for what has been waiting to unfold. You allow me to strengthen what is weak, mend what is fractured, and revive what has been numb for far too long. So let this moment be the beginning of that yielding. You don't need to feel ready. You simply need to allow your heart to loosen its grip. Because in the moment you do, even if it is for just a breath, I will meet you with a power that redefines what you expect from your own life. Think about how often you delay making a decision because you believe you need the right conditions before taking a step forward. You look for emotional clarity, improved circumstances, or a sense of confidence before you allow yourself to move, believing that progress requires the alignment of everything around you. Yet in doing so, you overlook the truth. The conditions only shift when my presence enters them. You keep searching for the perfect moment, but no moment becomes perfect until it carries my influence. You've placed unnecessary pressure on yourself by believing you must fix everything before welcoming me into it. You've convinced yourself that once you stabilize your life, clear your mind, or calm your heart, then you will have the right environment to pursue change. But that expectation steals opportunities from you because it makes you wait for a future that cannot arrive without my involvement. Every moment you postpone creates room for doubt, and doubt convinces you that waiting is harmless. Yet waiting without purpose gradually weakens your resolve and leaves your spirit wandering through uncertainty. You may not realize it, but your desire for a perfect moment is tied to a deeper longing for security, for control, for assurance that you will not be hurt again. You believe that if the timing were flawless, the risks would disappear. But the security you're searching for comes from my presence, not your conditions. When you invite me into the moment you are in right now, even with its confusion and imperfections, I begin reshaping it into something meaningful. You don't need to force clarity. You simply need to allow me to guide you in it. The moments that transform your life rarely feel ideal when they first appear. They feel uncertain, vulnerable, even fragile. But those are the moments where I work most deeply, because they open your heart to lean on me in ways comfort never could. I am not asking you to wait for the right moment. I am asking you to recognize that this moment, this very one, filled with imperfections and questions, becomes transformative the instant you invite me into it. Trust is not built by waiting for flawless conditions. Trust grows when you allow me to step into your uncertainty and show you that I can bring purpose to even the most unpolished parts of your life. Stop waiting for perfection. Let me perfect the moment you are already standing in. Bring your attention to the struggle you've carried alone, the one you haven't allowed anyone to see, because it reveals more about your heart than you realize. You've lived with the idea that seeking me requires you to be stronger, cleaner, calmer, or more spiritually prepared. You've convinced yourself that you need to stabilize your emotions, fix your habits, or resolve your internal battles before approaching me. This belief has created an inner isolation so deep that you feel the need to pretend even in your most private moments. You push through your days while covering the parts of yourself you fear are too messy for my presence. But that belief has never come from me. The idea that you must repair yourself before I receive you is a misunderstanding of everything I have offered. I do not wait for you to present a polished version of yourself. I come to you in the truth of who you are right now. Your silent battles matter to me. The thoughts you don't voice, the emotions you bury, the shame you carry from things you wish you could undo. All of these are things I want you to bring into my presence instead of managing alone. You were not created to heal yourself. You were not designed to overcome your internal conflicts without help. Weight you carry has grown heavier because you've handled it in isolation. Healing begins when you allow honesty to replace silence and connection to replace self-reliance. I do not push you away when you feel weak. I draw you closer. I don't wait until your heart feels stable. I steady it the moment you come to me. Every step of progress begins with authenticity, not perfection. If you wait until you believe you are ready, you will always remain on the outside of the transformation you hunger for. Readiness grows after you come to me, not before. You will never shock me with your struggles, disappoint me with your complexity, or overwhelm me with your emotions. I know every layer of your inner world, and my invitation remains unchanged. Come as you are. Not as you wish you were, not as you think I expect you to be. Come exactly as you are in this moment. When you bring me your truth, I bring you my healing. When you bring me your wounds, I bring restoration. When you bring me your confusion, I bring clarity. You do not need to fix yourself first. You need only to let me meet you where you are. Let your attention settle on the truth you sensed, but never fully admitted. The struggle you've been carrying on your own has been draining you far more deeply than you've allowed yourself to acknowledge. You've pushed through difficult seasons with determination, telling yourself that endurance is the same as strength, but endurance without support becomes a quiet form of exhaustion. You've convinced yourself that handling everything alone is noble, even necessary, because you fear that leaning on anyone, even on me, might reveal weakness. Yet the battle you are facing was never designed to be a solitary one. You've poured energy into maintaining control, trying to outthink your worries, outmaneuver your fears, and outrun the heaviness that follows you into every quiet moment. But there comes a point when human strength, no matter how sincere, reaches its limit. And it is precisely at that limit that I stand ready to take the weight from you. There are layers to your struggle that go deeper than circumstances or stress. Some of what you face comes from wounds that were never healed, expectations that were never met, disappointments you learned to hush but never resolved. These deeper places require more than human willpower. They require a strength that does not waver when emotions shift, a strength rooted in a presence that will not abandon you no matter how far the situation stretches you. My help is not meant to replace your effort but to multiply it. When you fight alone, you drain yourself. When you fight with me, you draw from a source that never empties. You may think that involving me requires you to be spiritual enough or ready enough, but my strength meets you in the exact condition you're in. You don't need to impress me with resilience. You don't need to hide the fact that you feel worn out or overwhelmed. I step into your reality with full awareness of every challenge pressing against you. When you allow me to fight with you, you step into a different kind of battle, one that doesn't depend on your ability to withstand everything alone. My strength brings protection where you feel vulnerable, clarity where confusion keeps clouding your perspective, and strategy where your mind has run out of ideas. The pressure you've been under is not evidence that you are weak. It is a sign that you were never meant to carry this load without divine partnership. Let this moment remind you that asking for my help is not surrendering your dignity. It is accepting the support you were created to receive. I am here to strengthen you in ways no person could, to reinforce your spirit, and to carry the weight that has been suffocating your inner life. You do not need to hold everything together. You only need to let me hold you. Bring awareness to the weariness that lingers behind your eyes, the kind that doesn't fade even after rest, because it speaks louder than any words you've spoken aloud. You've been operating on empty, convincing yourself that you have no choice but to keep going. You've taken on the role of holding everything together, your responsibilities, your emotions, your relationships, even the expectations others place upon you. You balance all of it with a quiet determination, never allowing yourself to fully break because you fear everything around you will collapse if you loosen your grip. Yet this constant tension inside you has come at a cost. It has drained your joy, dimmed your sense of possibility, and pushed you into cycles of survival that were never meant to define your life. I have watched every moment of this struggle, not with disappointment, but with compassion. You were not created to sustain everything through sheer effort. Your heart was not designed to absorb endless pressure. When you try to hold life together with human strength alone, it becomes a burden too heavy for your spirit. This is why I am calling you to release what you've been gripping so tightly. Letting something fall into my hands does not mean losing control. It means transferring control into the only place where it can be safely upheld. I am not asking you to abandon your responsibilities. I am inviting you to stop carrying them as though their outcome depends solely on you. When something falls into my hands, it doesn't break, it transforms. I bring order where chaos has piled up. I bring clarity where confusion has overshadowed your decisions. I bring rest where exhaustion has become your default state. But for me to do this, you must willingly let go. You must release the illusion that you alone must keep everything stable. Letting go is not a collapse, it is a transition. It is a sacred handoff between your effort and my sustaining power. I have seen how long you've been afraid to release control, yet this fear has limited what can unfold in your life. When you cling too tightly, you leave no room for me to rearrange what needs to shift. You leave no space for renewal. You leave no pathway for the unexpected blessings that come when you allow me to take the weight off your shoulders. This moment is not about failure. It is about trust. Trust that my hands are steadier than yours. Trust that I can hold what overwhelms you. Trust that letting go won't unravel your life. It will revive it. Pay attention to the subtle battle happening inside you, because it reveals the reason your heart has felt torn between moving forward and holding back. The hesitation you experience isn't simply uncertainty. It is a place where opposing voices try to influence your next step. You sense me calling you forward, urging you into peace, growth, and surrender, but at the same time another voice emerges, quiet, persistent, discouraging. That voice feeds doubts, stirs anxieties, and magnifies your fears. It tells you to wait, to question yourself, to second-guess the stirrings in your spirit. The longer you hesitate, the stronger that voice attempts to become. Yet something equally true is unfolding in the opposite direction. Each moment you turn your attention toward me, even in the smallest way, the influence of those lies weakens. When you respond to me, through trust, through prayer, through surrender, through even the smallest acts of openness, my presence becomes louder than fear. You begin to see possibilities where you once saw obstacles. You sense direction where you once felt lost. You feel peace where chaos used to dominate your thoughts. This is not because you are becoming stronger on your own, but because you are aligning yourself with a voice that speaks truth instead of distortion. Hesitation gives the enemy room to send confusion into your mind, but action, Even small action creates space for me to clarify, strengthen, and steady you. You often wait for confidence before moving, but confidence develops after movement begins. Each step toward me silences the doubts that used to paralyze you. Each moment of trust disrupts the lies that have followed you for years. Responding to me is not a dramatic act. It is a simple turning of the heart, a willingness to shift your focus from fear's predictions to my promises. You underestimate the power of moments, single seconds in which you choose which voice will carry influence in your life. These moments shape your direction more than major events ever could. When you choose me, even in uncertainty, you position yourself under a strength that dismantles deception. You align yourself with a peace that cannot be imitated. You step into clarity that overrides confusion. This battle is not about your capability, it is about your agreement. Every moment you agree with fear, it gains ground. Every moment you agree with me, fear loses its voice. So do not dwell in hesitation. Respond to me in the way your heart knows it needs to. You don't need full understanding to take the next step. You simply need willingness. Because every second you respond to me, the grip of fear weakens, the weight of lies breaks, and the path before you becomes clearer than you ever expected it could be. Feel the tension inside you for a moment, because it reveals the reason surrender has always felt risky to your heart. You've carried this quiet fear that if you release what you've been holding, something vital will slip out of your grasp. You imagine surrender as a kind of loss, as if letting go will leave you exposed, unprotected, or without structure. That belief has shaped the way you cling to certain habits, relationships, expectations, and even certain wounds because they feel familiar, and familiarity often feels safer than change. You've told yourself that you must guard what you have, maintain your footing, and keep control so nothing collapses beneath you. Yet this instinct to hold everything tightly has quietly drained your energy and dulled your hope. What you fear surrender will cost you is far smaller than what holding on alone has already taken. You don't realize how much of your strength has been spent gripping things that were never meant to define your identity or determine your future. There are areas in your life where surrender is not about giving something up, but about returning something to my care. You've tried to manage outcomes, direct your path, and maintain emotional balance without allowing any space for divine intervention. That approach has burdened you with responsibilities meant to be shared, not shouldered alone. This is why your heart feels exhausted. It's not because you're failing, it's because you're carrying what was never meant to rest on your shoulders. When you loosen your grip, you make room for me to guide, restore, and protect in ways human control cannot accomplish. I am not asking you to surrender so that you lose. I am asking you to surrender so you can breathe again. The cost is not in releasing your fears, but in holding them until they harden into limitations. The cost is not in letting go of your need for control, but in clinging to it until it shapes your entire outlook on life. The moment you choose surrender, something within you shifts, not because circumstances suddenly change, but because your heart stops fighting the battle alone. You open a doorway for peace to enter, for clarity to settle, and for hope to rise in places where pressure once lived. Surrender is not a sign of weakness. It is the point where strength is redefined. It is the beginning of living from a place of trust instead of tension. So release what hath been tightening your spirit. Release the need to predict every outcome. Release the illusion that you must manage everything on your own. When you surrender, you are not falling. You are returning to my hands, where you have always been safest. Let your heart absorb this truth deeply, because it challenges every fear-based assumption you've carried about what it means to follow where I lead. You've often believed that stepping closer to me might mean sacrificing joy, opportunity, comfort, or identity. This fear grew from subtle experiences, past disappointments, and misunderstandings that made you associate spiritual commitment with restriction rather than abundance. But my intention has never been to diminish your life. I am the source of life, the one who breathes purpose into your days and meaning into your struggles. When I call you forward, it is never into emptiness. I draw you toward a fullness that you cannot find by holding on to the things that drain you. My path is not one of deprivation but one of restoration. Yet because you've been wounded before, you hesitate to trust that what I offer will truly bring you joy. You've grown comfortable expecting loss, even when you long for something more. Consider the areas where you feared that surrender would strip you of your identity. In reality, it is the place where your truest identity begins to unfold. You were not created to live in a state of emotional scarcity, always trying to protect yourself from disappointment. I lead you into life, not halfway, not partially, but fully. A life where your choices are guided by peace rather than anxiety. A life where your purpose resonates through your actions instead of being buried under fear. A life where joy is not an occasional visitor, but a steady companion. When I speak of overflowing life, I mean a life where you experience fullness in ways your mind has not yet imagined. Fullness of hope, fullness of healing, fullness of clarity, fullness of strength. You've been holding on to things that limit you because you fear that letting go will leave you empty. But emptiness is not the defining outcome of surrender. Overflow is. Redemption is. Renewal is. The parts of your story that feel broken beyond repair are the very places where I pour new life. You misunderstand my intentions when you assume I lead you away from what is good for you. I lead you away only from what cannot sustain you. So when I call you, do not picture a path of sacrifice that strips you of joy. Picture a path of restoration that expands your capacity to live fully. What you release is temporary. What I give is lasting. What you fear losing is small compared to the life I intend to awaken within you. This is not a call into loss. It is a call into a life truer, richer, and more redeemed than anything you've known. Notice the subtle patterns that keep repeating in your life, because they reveal more about spiritual resistance than you may realize. You've often felt a quiet pull toward change, a nudge, a conviction, a moment of clarity, yet you've also felt an equally quiet inclination to postpone your response. It seems small at first, harmless, almost responsible. I'll think about it more. I'll do it when I feel stronger. I'll wait until I'm sure. But hesitation, when fueled by fear or doubt, becomes a doorway through which discouragement enters. The enemy understands that he does not need to lure you into destruction to derail your progress. All he needs is delay. Delay keeps you stuck in cycles you've outgrown. Delay convinces you that tomorrow is a better time to change, even though tomorrow arrives with the same hesitations unless something breaks the pattern. Delay disguises itself as caution, yet underneath it lies a subtle strategy to weaken your momentum and confuse your direction. When you postpone obedience, you unintentionally reinforce the belief that fear deserves consideration. This gives fear space to influence your choices, distort your discernment, and diminish your confidence. You may believe that nothing changes when you hesitate, but spiritually, hesitation shifts the atmosphere around you. It creates room for doubt to grow roots. It allows old tendencies to reclaim space in your heart. It blurs the clarity you once felt, making it harder to recognize the next step. This is why your moments of deepest conviction often fade when you wait too long to respond. The enemy does not have to push you backward if he can keep you from moving forward. Responding promptly to my voice is not meant to pressure you. It is meant to protect you. Obedience is not a burden. It is a safeguard. When you act on the guidance I give you, you align yourself with strength, clarity, and direction that dismantle confusion. Every time you choose obedience, even when you feel unsure, you weaken the influence of the enemy's whispers. You reclaim authority over your life. You break cycles you once felt powerless against. You take ground in areas where you previously felt stuck. And with each step of obedience, you grow more confident in my ability to guide you. The danger is not in acting too soon. It is in waiting too long. You are not being asked to leap blindly. You are being invited to step faithfully. When you move with me, you place distance between yourself and the strategies meant to keep you stagnant. So do not let delay disguise itself as wisdom. Do not give hesitation more influence than my voice. When I call you forward, it is because forward is the direction where your strength, purpose, and freedom lie. Consider what it feels like to stand before something meant for you yet remain unable to fully step into it, because that is the exact place your heart has inhabited for far too long. There have been moments when you sensed a shift coming, moments that felt charged with possibility, moments where clarity cut through confusion and you could always see what your life might look like if you moved forward. These glimpses were not accidents. They were invitations. They were signs that you were nearing a threshold designed to lead you into something more whole, more purposeful, and more aligned with who you are becoming. But each time you approached that threshold, hesitation slipped in like a shadow. You began to question your readiness, your ability, and your worth. You tried to predict outcomes before taking steps, and in doing so, you kept the door only halfway open. Your heart has felt the tension of this halfway position. It's an internal pull between desire and caution, possibility and fear, faith and uncertainty. You've tried to rationalize your pause by telling yourself that timing wasn't right or that you needed more clarity. Yet deep down you know the real obstacle has been the fear of stepping into something unfamiliar. You've grown accustomed to standing near breakthroughs without fully embracing them, hoping they will unfold on their own. But breakthroughs rarely appear without your participation. They respond to movement, to willingness, to courage. They require more than observation. They require engagement. When you hover near the doorway instead of walking through it, you remain close enough to feel hope yet far enough to keep your life unchanged. I am not disappointed in your hesitation. I understand the wounds and experiences that shaped it. But I want you to see that the door before you is not closed. It waits for your decision. The breakthrough is not slipping away. It is waiting for your yes. You don't need to feel fearless to step forward. You only need to trust that the step itself will reveal what hesitation has hidden from you. When you push the door fully open, you make space for clarity, alignment, and peace to flow in ways you haven't experienced yet. You clear the pathway for blessings that feel delayed, not because they are withheld, but because the doorway remains only partially open. This moment is an invitation to shift from always to fully. You were created for more than glimpses of transformation. You were created to walk in the fullness of it. So choose to move. Choose to step. Choose to open the door wide enough for breakthrough to finally become your lived reality. Let your spirit lean into the urgency of this moment, because what I am opening in your life requires your willingness now, not after you feel ready, or strong or certain. Restoration is not a distant idea reserved for some future version of you. It is something I intend to begin in your present condition, in the very places where you feel the most drained, discouraged, or undone. You've endured seasons where parts of your heart felt worn thin, where disappointments piled up, where hope grew quiet. These experiences left marks you've tried to hide or ignore, believing that time alone would heal them. But time does not restore what has never been surrendered. Restoration begins when you stop postponing the work your soul is aching for. There are wounds inside you that have lingered far longer than you expected. You've stepped over them, built around them, tried to function despite them, yet they continue affecting you beneath the surface. They influence your relationships, your decisions, your self-worth, and your capacity to receive good things. You've told yourself, "I'll heal when life settles, when I have more stability, when I'm not so overwhelmed." But the truth is that healing will not wait for convenience. Restoration does not wait for ideal conditions. It begins the moment you open the door to it, and that door is in front of you now. I want you to understand something vital. The restoration I desire to bring is not small or partial. It touches the places you rarely talk about, the ones you've protected with silence. It brings renewal to areas you assumed were too damaged to be revived. It restores confidence where fear has taken root. It restores clarity where confusion has been lingering. It restores identity where you've lost sight of your worth. But every layer of restoration begins with your choice to stop delaying. You cannot move into a renewed life while holding on to patterns designed to keep you unchanged. Respond to this moment. Allow me to begin what only I can complete. You do not need to know every step of the process. You only need to give me access to the areas that have been waiting for healing far too long. The longer you delay, the longer you remain in cycles that were never meant to define you. But when you say yes today, when you open yourself to restoration, you set in motion a shift that will alter the trajectory of your life. Restoration begins now because your heart has waited long enough. Bring your awareness to the quiet ache you've carried for years, because it reveals the very place where healing has been waiting for your permission to begin. You've hoped for change, prayed for relief, longed for renewal, yet there has always been a part of you that hesitated to step fully into the healing you need. Perhaps it felt too vulnerable. Perhaps you feared the process would uncover emotions you weren't ready to face. Perhaps you worried that healing would require you to confront truths you've kept buried. These fears have caused you to delay, telling yourself that the right moment would arrive someday, when your heart felt stronger or your circumstances more stable. But healing does not wait for strength. Healing creates strength. It doesn't require stability. It builds it. And what you have been postponing is something I have already prepared. Healing is not something you must earn. It is not a reward for endurance or proof of spiritual progress. It is a gift, one crafted with intention, waiting in my hands, ready to be placed into yours. Yet gifts must be received to be experienced. You cannot carry healing while clinging to the pain you've grown accustomed to. You cannot receive restoration while holding tightly to the patterns that protect your wounds but prevent your growth. Some of the emotional weight you carry has stayed with you only because you've believed you were not ready to face it. But readiness is not the prerequisite. Openness is. Healing unfolds when you let your guard down long enough for my presence to reach the places you keep hidden. What I offer you is not superficial. It reaches deep into your life, in the memories that still influence your reactions, in the fears that shape your decisions, in the insecurities that whisper lies about your worth. My healing brings clarity where confusion reigns, peace where inner chaos has taken over, and gentleness where harshness has worn you down. But none of this can begin until you allow yourself to receive what I have already prepared. You don't need to understand the entire process to step into it. You only need to acknowledge that the wounds you've learned to manage were never meant to remain open. This is the moment to receive what you've delayed, not because your pain is urgent, but because your healing is. You deserve to live with a whole heart. You deserve to wake up without the emotional heaviness that has followed you for years. You deserve to experience the fullness of life that healing makes possible. And everything you need for that healing is ready, waiting, and held in my hands, prepared long before you realized you would need it. Let your heart recognize how seen you truly are, because the storms you've weathered in secret have never been invisible to me. You've carried emotions late into the night. Moments when you sit quietly because your mind refuses to settle. Moments when thoughts return uninvited and echo louder than the peace you long for. You've wiped tears before anyone noticed, convinced yourself to stay strong when your spirit felt fragile, and learned to swallow words that felt too heavy to speak aloud. These hidden battles have shaped you in ways you rarely admit, making you feel older inside than your years would suggest. Yet none of this has gone unnoticed. Every private ache, every silent worry, every fear that emerges in the dark hours has been witnessed with the deepest compassion. I know what weighs on you even when you pretend you're fine. I know the questions you ask yourself when no one else is around. I know how you replay moments from your past, wondering if they still hold power over you. And I know how exhausting it is to feel unsettled inside while trying to present stability on the outside. The storms within you often feel unpredictable, one moment calm, the next moment swirling with old memories, insecurities, or anxieties you thought you outgrew. These inner storms build slowly, creeping into your thoughts until you find yourself overwhelmed by emotions you can't easily explain. You may feel embarrassed or frustrated by them, wondering why you can't just get over it, or why certain moments still have influence over you. But the presence of these storms is not a sign that you are weak. It is a sign that you've been carrying far more than your heart was meant to carry alone. And I am here, not as a distant observer, but as a steadying presence, ready to quiet the turmoil that has lingered too long. Peace does not come from ignoring your feelings or forcing yourself to appear strong. It comes from letting me address what lies beneath the surface. When you release your hidden turmoil into my care, I begin calming the waves inside you, not through pressure, but through presence. I soften the thoughts that accuse you. I dismantle the fears that rise without warning. I dissolve the heaviness that keeps you awake at night. You've asked me before to change your circumstances, but much of the restoration you need begins inside you. When I calm your internal storm, you gain clarity, courage, and emotional freedom that external changes alone could never provide. Trust that I am with you right now, even in the thoughts you haven't spoken. Nothing in your inner world is beyond my reach or my compassion. You don't need to hide your pain or fix your emotions before turning to me. Let me quiet what's raging in you. Let me bring peace where unrest has lived. Let me place calmness where you've known turmoil. This is the moment your storm begins to lose its power. Allow your spirit to be fully attentive for a moment, because what I am saying to you now is something you have been longing to hear, even if you didn't realize it. You've asked for guidance, clarity, and direction, hoping for a sign that would finally confirm what your heart has felt uncertain about. You've wanted reassurance that you aren't imagining my nudges, that the thoughts stirring within you aren't just your own ideas. And I have been speaking, through impressions, through conviction, through the gentle pull toward change that keeps resurfacing no matter how many times you try to dismiss it. Yet each time my voice grows clearer, something inside you instinctively tightens. Your heart becomes cautious, guarded, unsure whether to trust what you're sensing. This is not because you are resistant or rebellious. It's because past disappointments have taught you to tread carefully around hope. You fear misinterpreting my voice because you fear being hurt again. But understand this. My voice does not come to confuse or condemn you. It comes to lead you toward life. When you feel that inner pull, that quiet persuasion toward what is good, healing, or freeing, it isn't random. It is the very communication you've been asking me for. The challenge is not in recognizing my voice. It's in allowing yourself to trust it. Your heart has grown hesitant because it has been wounded before, and wounded hearts often create walls around themselves for protection. But those walls, while built with good intentions, become barriers to the very guidance you desire. When you harden your heart, even slightly, my voice becomes difficult to receive, not because it grows faint, but because your fear filters its meaning. You don't need to fear being misled by me. My voice aligns with peace, even when it calls you into discomfort. It aligns with truth, even when truth compels change. It aligns with freedom, even when freedom requires letting go. When you sense my guidance, pay attention to what it pulls you toward: healing, clarity, humility, honesty, courage. These fruits reveal my direction. Hardened hearts miss the subtleties of divine guidance, but open hearts recognize it even in whispers. So let this be the moment you soften, even just a little. You've asked for me to speak, and I am speaking through conviction, through comfort, through the quiet realization of what your next step needs to be. You don't need to fully understand before responding. You only need to remain open. My voice is not here to pressure you. It is here to guide you into the life you've been longing for. Let the significance of this moment settle into your spirit, because what I am offering you right now has the potential to redirect the course of your entire future. Not in a dramatic, overwhelming way, but in a deeply transformative one. The choices you make in transitions, those quiet, internal decisions to trust, to release, to step forward, become turning points that shape who you become and what you experience. Much of what you long for is tied to decisions you have postponed, not because you lack desire, but because you doubt whether your next step will lead anywhere meaningful. But hear me, when you respond to my guidance, even in small ways, you set in motion shifts that reach far beyond this moment. You've lived in patterns that created predictable results. You've walked familiar paths because familiarity feels safe. But familiar paths rarely lead to new destinations. You've sensed that something in your life needs to change: a mindset, a habit, a relationship dynamic, an emotional pattern. But you've struggled to act because acting feels risky. Yet the real risk lies in staying where you are when you feel me calling you forward. When I speak into your life, I am not offering vague inspiration. I am giving you direction meant to align you with purpose. Each time you trust my voice over your fears, you step into alignment with the life I designed you to experience. This moment carries unusual weight because your heart is awake right now in a way it hasn't been in a long time. You feel conviction, clarity, and even a quiet courage rising within you. These sensations are not random. They are signals that your spirit is ready for a shift. The trajectory of your life changes when you make decisions from a place of truth rather than fear. When you take me at my word, you detach your future from the limitations of your past. You break cycles. You rewrite internal narratives. You open doors that hesitation once kept closed. You may not see the full picture yet, but trust grows through movement. My guidance becomes clearer as you walk, not before you begin. So let this be the moment you choose direction over doubt, trust over second-guessing, faith over hesitation. If you take me at my word, the shift will begin, not because circumstances instantly change, but because you will. And when you change, everything connected to your future begins to realign. This moment is an invitation to leave old patterns behind and enter the trajectory you were always meant to follow. Let this truth confront every lie that has settled into your identity, because the limitations you've placed on yourself have never existed in my view of you. You've walked through seasons that made you feel worn down, marked by mistakes, or defined by moments you wish you could erase. Life has left impressions on you, some through choices you made, some through pain that happened to you without your consent. These experiences created internal narratives that whisper you're too flawed to be restored, too behind to catch up, or too wounded to ever feel whole again. You've carried this belief quietly, letting it shape the way you approach hope, relationships, opportunities, and even me. But what you call disqualification, I call an opening. What you call damage, I call a place for healing. You are not a lost cause. You are not past redemption. You are not beyond reach. Every part of you, your struggles, your regrets, your hidden wounds, remains within the territory of my compassion and power. You underestimate the depth of my ability to work with the parts of your story that feel unredeemable. You assume that transformation requires a cleaner history or a more stable heart. But my work does not depend on your perfection. It begins in your honesty. The places where you feel the most unworthy are often the exact places where I intend to reveal my strength. You may think your mistakes have counted you out, but I do not define you by your lowest moments. I define you by the potential I placed inside you long before life complicated your journey. Nothing you've been through, no failure, no disappointment, no sequence of bad decisions, has closed the door to what I can do right now. You often compare yourself to others, believing they are more prepared, more deserving, or more put together. But comparison has never been a measure of destiny. I work uniquely in every life, and your story holds a purpose that cannot be replaced or replicated. You have not fallen too far for me to lift you. You have not waited too long for me to intervene. You have not broken too deeply for me to restore you. What feels like the end of your capacity is the beginning of my involvement. Open your heart to the possibility that change can begin in this moment. Not in some distant better version of yourself, not when you feel spiritually strong, but right now, while you still feel unsure, imperfect, or fractured. I am not intimidated by the parts of you that feel messy. I move toward them with intention. So release the belief that you've gone too far or waited too long. You are exactly where I can reach you, shape you, and raise you into the fullness of who you were always meant to become. Nothing about you disqualifies you from my movement. Everything about you positions you for renewal. Turn your attention to the memories that still echo inside you, because they reveal why hope has felt difficult for you to fully embrace. You've grown accustomed to tracing your expectations for the future from the patterns of your past. You look at the moments when things didn't work out, the times you were disappointed, the seasons where you were hurt or misunderstood, and you use those experiences as evidence to predict what might happen next. Over time, this has caused you to expect repetition instead of renewal. You anticipate familiar outcomes, not because you want them, but because your past has trained your heart to brace for what went wrong rather than believe in what could go right. But the past is not a prophecy. It is not a map for the future I am leading you toward. It is a chapter, not the entire story. Your past has shaped you, but it has not sentenced you. The only power it holds is the power you continue to give it through fear, assumption, or avoidance. I am not using your past to limit your future. I am using it to strengthen your wisdom, deepen your compassion, and refine your discernment. You carry lessons that will guide you forward, not traps that will bind you to who you once were. The moments that scarred you, the mistakes that haunt you, the seasons that drained you, none of these have the authority to define what comes next unless you allow them to dictate your beliefs. You may not realize how deeply your past experiences have influenced your reactions. They have shaped how you trust, how you love, how you dream, and how you protect yourself. But I am inviting you to release the assumption that history must repeat itself. You are not walking in circles, you are moving forward, even when it feels slow. My plan for you is not a continuation of old wounds. It is a transformation that brings you beyond them. Your future is not fragile. It is not a thin thread that can break under the weight of your memories. It is rooted in my strength, shaped by my wisdom, and guided by my hand. You are not bound to the outcomes you once experienced. You are being led into a new season, a new mindset, a new measure of healing. The path ahead does not mirror the path behind you. So release the belief that the worst moments of your past are the blueprint for your future. I am writing something new, something your past cannot cancel, your fear cannot hinder, and your history cannot predict. Shift your focus to the obstacles that seem immovable, because what appears impossible from your viewpoint is not impossible from mine. You've walked through seasons where the road ahead seemed blocked by circumstances, limitations, or uncertainties you couldn't navigate. You've looked at certain areas of your life, relationships, finances, decisions, emotional struggles, and felt as though progress was unreachable. You felt trapped, cornered, or stuck in patterns you couldn't break. From your perspective, the path appears narrow or non-existent. But paths are not always visible before they are walked. And I specialize in creating ways where none seem to exist. You've assumed that clarity must come before movement. But often, movement is what brings clarity. When you step in faith, you discover openings that were invisible before. I've been guiding you in ways you didn't recognize, through conversations, intuition, closed doors, unexpected endings, and quiet nudges that redirect you. These are not random. They are the early markings of a path you have not yet fully seen. You've mistaken delay for denial, not realizing that I have been aligning pieces behind the scenes, preparing timing, and strengthening you for the very opportunity you feel unqualified for. Even when everything around you suggests there is no way forward, trust that I am not limited by what limits you. I do not depend on ideal circumstances or perfect conditions. I do not need the approval of others or the predictability of outcomes. I create solutions that rise from places you believed were dead ends. I open doors that no one can close. I breathe life into situations you assume were finished. The path I form often begins with a single moment of trust, a willingness to move even when you don't see where your foot will land. You may feel unsure about the direction, but uncertainty does not mean absence of guidance. It means you are walking in a realm where faith grows. Believe that I am leading you, even when the path curves in ways you didn't expect. Believe that I am clearing obstacles you haven't yet encountered. Believe that I am preparing breakthroughs that will meet you at the exact moment you need them. The place where you see no possible way is the place where I am about to reveal my power most clearly. Trust that the way is being made, not later, not eventually, but even now, as your heart opens to follow my lead. Pause for a moment and let yourself feel the difference between merely surviving and truly living, because this is the shift I am inviting you into right now. You spent far too many seasons in a state of internal emergency, constantly bracing for the next problem, constantly holding yourself together with sheer will, constantly trying to manage your emotions, your responsibilities, and your pain without ever catching a full breath. Survival mode taught you resilience, but it also robbed you of rest, joy, and clarity. It conditioned you to focus on what must be endured instead of what can be transformed. It made your heart beat faster than your hope. It reinforced the belief that your role is simply to cope rather than rise. But survival is not your identity. It was only a temporary posture. Revival is the direction I am drawing you toward, because your spirit was made for more than just getting through the day. When you live in survival mode, your decisions become shaped by urgency instead of purpose. You react instead of discern. You cling instead of grow. You settle for what feels safe instead of stretching into what feels true. Yet even while you've been operating from this place, I have been working behind the scenes to prepare a shift that awakens the parts of you that exhaustion silenced. Revival mode is not about becoming someone new. It is about reclaiming the person you were before stress, disappointment, and fear began to shrink your sense of possibility. It reawakens your creativity, your courage, your connection to hope. It brings warmth where numbness has settled. It brings desire where apathy has taken root. It brings vision where weariness has blurred your perspective. This shift does not require perfection. It requires permission. And that permission comes from you allowing me to reorient your heart away from constant self-preservation. You don't need to know how to revive your own spirit. Revival is something I breathe into you. It happens when you turn your attention from everything that drains you and begin receiving what strengthens you. It begins when you stop bracing for the worst and start believing again for what is possible. It grows when you release your grip on patterns designed only to help you endure and embrace the patterns that allow you to expand. You've carried burden so long that you forgot what it feels like to move with lightness. You've been strong for so many people that you forgot you deserve to be strengthened as well. You've been surviving on fragments of hope, but I am offering you a full supply. Let this moment be the invitation your spirit hath been waiting for. You are not stepping into revival by striving, but by allowing me to breathe life into the places you've assumed would always feel tired. You are moving out of survival, not because everything around you changes instantly, but because everything within you begins to rise. Bring your awareness to the restrictions you've learned to tolerate, because the weight you've normalized is not the weight you were designed to bear. You've carried emotional chains of regret, insecurity, fear, self-doubt, bitterness, disappointment, and old pain, for so long that they no longer feel like chains. They feel like parts of your identity. They've shaped the way you think about yourself and the way you imagine your future. You've convinced yourself that these limitations are just your personality now, or that certain wounds are simply part of your story forever. But these chains were never meant to remain. They were never meant to harden around your life. And while you may have learned to function with them, they have quietly influenced every choice, every expectation, every attempt at growth. I am showing you these chains not to shame you, but to reveal that I am ready to remove them, in a moment, in a breath, in a shift so swift you will wonder how you ever believed they were unbreakable. These chains persist not because they are strong, but because you've been carrying them for so long that you stopped questioning whether release was possible. You adapted to the weight. You adjusted your habits around it. You lowered your expectations to accommodate it. You protected parts of your heart because you assumed certain things about you could never change. But hear me clearly, what you've adapted to is not your destiny. You think these restraints require years of rebuilding to break, but some chains dissolve the instant you finally decide to place them in my hands. Some patterns collapse the moment you stop agreeing with them. Some wounds heal the moment you stop hiding them. Do not underestimate what can happen when you open yourself to release. I am not waiting for a better version of you. I am not waiting for you to become stronger or more stable. The power to break these chains does not come from you. It comes from me. And I am ready to free you from what has followed you for years. Freedom is not a distant reward. It is a present possibility the moment you surrender what binds you. Healing can begin instantly. Patterns can shift instantly. Hope can return instantly. You don't need to climb your way out of captivity. You simply need to let me unlock what you've learned to live with. Let this be the moment where you stop adjusting to limitations and start stepping into liberation. You are not defined by your chains. You are defined by the one who can break them. And I am ready, right now, to remove what has held your spirit from rising into the fullness of its strength. Let your heart pay attention to the places where your own strength has reached its limit, because these are the very places where my presence is prepared to do what your effort cannot. You've tried to heal certain wounds with determination, hoping that persistence alone would loosen their grip. You've tried to change patterns by sheer willpower, believing that if you tried harder, you would finally overcome them. You've tried to shake off fears by reasoning with them, only to find that fear often returns with new layers of complexity. Your strength has carried you admirably, but even the strongest human resolve cannot break what has wrapped itself around your spirit for years. This isn't because you failed, it's because some battles were never designed to be won through human effort alone. You were created with a limited supply of strength so you would recognize when to lean into a greater one. You have spent seasons believing that more discipline, more resilience, or more emotional endurance would lead you into freedom. But there are burdens that don't respond to human striving. They dissolve only when exposed to the presence that carries divine authority. My presence does not work like your strength. Your strength pushes, my presence transforms. Your strength endures, my presence liberates. Your strength wills itself forward, my presence rewrites what has held you back. When you invite me into the areas you've guarded, the things that felt immovable begin to shift, not gradually, not weakly, but with the kind of power that silences long-standing battles. This isn't about being passive or avoiding responsibility. It's about recognizing that your spirit deserves a strength greater than your own. You don't need to carry burdens that exhaust you day after day. You don't need to fix wounds you didn't create. You don't need to fight battles that drain you more than they grow you. My presence is not something you must earn. It is something you must allow. And when you allow it, even the hardest places become permeable. Even the oldest patterns begin to soften. Even the lies you've believed about yourself lose their influence. What your strength has not been able to break is not unbreakable. It's simply waiting for the touch of my presence. There is no shame in admitting that you need help that exceeds your own ability. In truth, that admission marks the doorway to the freedom you've been seeking. So stop trying to force change. Stop condemning yourself for not progressing fast enough. Stop exhausting your spirit by attempting to accomplish alone what requires a sacred partnership. Step into the stillness where my presence works without resistance. Step into the openness where I can reach what you've kept hidden. Step into the surrender where transformation takes root. Let me break what your strength could never touch. Let this moment settle into you with a weight you cannot ignore, because what you are hearing now is the very confirmation your spirit has been waiting on for far longer than you've admitted. You've asked repeatedly for clarity, quietly, privately, sometimes desperately. You said things like, if only I had a sign, if only I knew what to do, if only I could hear something unmistakable. You've carried these longings in silence, unsure whether your questions were too big, too burdensome, or too complicated to bring before me. Yet every time you asked for a sign, it wasn't a sign you wanted as much as reassurance. You wanted to know that I saw you, that I understood your inner conflict, that what you were feeling wasn't imagined, that the direction stirring inside you wasn't random, that you weren't alone in your uncertainty. And because I know the condition of your heart, I have chosen to respond in a way that leaves no room for confusion. This moment is your sign. You seek signs when your courage feels thin, when your path feels unclear, or when your heart feels divided. I am not offended by your desire for reassurance. I understand the weight of decision-making, the fear of making the wrong step, the exhaustion that comes from carrying too many choices at once. But hear me clearly, you are not being led by coincidence. The stirring you feel is deliberate. The conviction you sense is intentional. The resonance in your spirit as you read these words is evidence that this is not emotional impulse, it is divine direction. You've been waiting for something external, a circumstance to shift, an opportunity to appear, someone else to confirm what you already sense. But signs are not always external. Sometimes the sign is the moment your heart recognizes truth so deeply that you can no longer deny it. Sometimes the sign is the peace that rises when you consider the path I am guiding you toward. Sometimes the sign is the discomfort that grows when you remain in a place I am urging you to leave. And sometimes the sign is me speaking directly to you, removing every layer of uncertainty you've been wrestling with. This moment is not random. These words are not accidental. You asked me to speak, and I am speaking. Not through thunder, not through dreams, not through extraordinary events, but through clarity. Clarity that rests on your heart with unmistakable presence. Let this assurance steady you. Let it guide you. Let it become the confirmation you stop questioning. You don't need to wait for another sign. You don't need to second guess what I am revealing. You don't need to search for something more dramatic. This is the sign, because this is the moment your spirit recognizes my voice and knows what to do next. Let your heart recognize the gentle pressure you've been feeling lately, because that inner tug you keep trying to ignore is not condemnation. It is the doorway to freedom. Conviction has unsettled you at times, stirring emotions and thoughts you weren't prepared to confront. You've wondered if it meant something was wrong with you, something irreparably flawed or disappointing. But conviction is not a spotlight meant to expose you. It is a hand reaching toward you, inviting you into healing. Conviction carries truth, yet it carries compassion just as deeply. It reveals what needs to shift, not to burden you but to release you from what has silently held you back. The discomfort you feel is not punishment, it is an awakening. It is the quiet signal that you are standing at the edge of transformation, and something within you is ready to grow, ready to let go, ready to be renewed in ways you once thought were unreachable. There have been moments where conviction felt overwhelming, moments where you wanted to turn away because you feared what it might demand. You preferred numbness over honesty, distraction over introspection, familiar patterns over vulnerable change. You weren't avoiding me, you were avoiding the pain of facing yourself. But understand that I never reveal a truth without providing the grace to walk through it. Conviction is not meant to crush you. It is meant to guide you into places where old wounds can finally heal. It shines light on the parts of your heart that have been operating in the dark for far too long. It exposes lies you've believed about yourself, lies planted through trauma, disappointment, or fear. And when truth comes, even if it stings at first, it comes with the promise that what is revealed can be redeemed. Running from conviction leaves you carrying burdens that were meant to be lifted. When you silence what I am stirring, you extend cycles that are supposed to end. You prolong wounds that are ready to close. You hold on to patterns that no longer fit the person you are becoming. But when you lean into conviction, when you allow yourself to feel it, listen to it, and respond to it, you open the door to a level of freedom you've never fully experienced. You begin stepping into clarity. You begin releasing the heaviness tied to old mistakes. You begin healing from behaviors rooted in fear rather than identity. You begin aligning with who you truly are rather than who pain has shaped you to be. So don't run this time. Don't hide behind distractions or excuses. Don't silence the voice that's trying to save you. Let conviction guide you gently, steadily, lovingly. Let it bring you into the life your spirit has been craving. Conviction is not my rejection. It is my rescue. It is me taking your hand and leading you out of the places where you've been trapped far too long. If you follow it, you will discover the freedom that has always been waiting for you. Let your mind slow down long enough to acknowledge the uneasiness you've been feeling, because that discomfort you keep trying to escape is actually pointing you toward the exact transformation your soul has been seeking. You've been conditioned to believe that discomfort is a sign something is wrong, something to avoid, suppress, or push aside. But discomfort often signals that you are outgrowing the place you've been living emotionally, spiritually, or mentally. It appears when you are approaching a threshold that requires courage, honesty, or change. Instead of seeing discomfort as a threat, see it as a catalyst, a sign that you are being stretched into a larger version of yourself. Growth does not happen in safety. It happens when you step into spaces that challenge your old habits, reveal your deeper beliefs, and force you to confront the areas you've avoided for years. You've likely felt the tug-of-war inside you, part of you wanting growth, part of you clinging to familiarity. You desire breakthroughs, yet you instinctively retreat when the process becomes uncomfortable. You want healing, but you hesitate when emotions rise to the surface. You want change, but you hesitate when it demands something new from you. But hear me. Discomfort is not meant to intimidate you. It is meant to prepare you. Growth rarely comes wrapped in ease. It arrives in moments when your faith must move before your understanding does, when you must trust that stepping forward will lead to something better even if you cannot see it yet. Discomfort has been showing up in your relationships, your habits, your thoughts, and your daily choices, not to burden you, but to alert you that you've reached the border of your old identity. You are not meant to shrink back into who you were. You are meant to rise into who you are becoming. And that journey requires you to release the expectation that growth will feel cozy or predictable. When you embrace discomfort, you stop running from the very process designed to elevate you. You begin to see its purpose, to stretch your faith, refine your character, break unhealthy patterns, and strengthen your spirit. You start recognizing that everything you desire, peace, clarity, maturity, freedom, stands on the other side of moments you would rather avoid. Let this be the moment you stop interpreting discomfort as danger. Let it instead become the sign that you are on the right path. Lean into it with the assurance that I am with you in every step, guiding you through every threshold, and using each stretch to build something stronger within you. Growth may challenge you, but it will not harm you. Discomfort may unsettle you, but it will not break you. You are being shaped, strengthened, and expanded. And if you dare to walk through this doorway rather than run from it, you will discover a life far larger, freer, and fuller than anything you've known before. Let this truth settle into the places where you've been procrastinating, because the delays you've justified as needing more time have actually been rooted in something far deeper than timing. You've told yourself that waiting would protect you from mistakes or prepare you for the moment when everything finally feels manageable. You've convinced yourself that clarity will come later, strength will come later, alignment will come later. Yet the more you wait, the heavier the decision becomes, and the less confident you feel. You're not waiting because time is necessary. You're waiting because trust feels risky. You're waiting because part of you fears that if you move too soon, you'll step into something you cannot control. You're waiting because trust requires surrender, and surrender challenges the parts of you that have relied on self-protection for years. But hear me, the transformation you desire isn't delayed because of time. It's delayed because trust has not yet taken the place fear has been holding. There are areas of your life where you've convinced yourself you need more understanding before you commit to a path. But understanding is rarely what unlocks movement. Trust is. You can gather information, reflect endlessly, seek reassurance from others, and replay every possible outcome in your mind, yet none of that will create the peace you're searching for. Peace comes from trusting that I see the road ahead more clearly than you do. It comes from believing that I will not lead you into anything designed to harm you. It comes from understanding that obedience creates clarity, not the other way around. You keep waiting for the courage to rise before you act, not realizing that courage grows after you take the first step. You don't need more time. You need to release the belief that timing will somehow eliminate uncertainty. Uncertainty will always exist when you stand on the edge of change. You will never feel completely ready for the next season, the next step, the next decision. Readiness is built through trust, not through delay. Every time you postpone movement in the name of more time, you unintentionally reinforce fear's voice. Fear tells you to stay still until everything makes sense. Trust tells you to move because I am with you. Fear tells you to wait for perfect conditions. Trust tells you that conditions are transformed as you walk. Fear convinces you that delay is safe. Trust reminds you that delay costs more than obedience ever will. So shift your posture from waiting for more time to seeking more trust. Ask yourself not, am I ready? But do I trust the one guiding me? You may not feel fully prepared, but I am prepared for you. I know the path, the obstacles, the breakthroughs, and the blessings connected to your next step. Time cannot give you what trust will give you. Trust will give you direction. Trust will give you courage. Trust will give you peace. Trust will give you momentum. Trust is the key that unlocks the life you keep telling yourself you'll reach later. And later is not where your destiny lies. Trust is, bring your attention to the choices you've been postponing, because the areas you leave undecided become the very places where the enemy gains influence. You've assumed that indecision is neutral, that waiting harms nothing, that taking your time ensures wisdom. But not every delay is careful planning. Some delays are footholds the enemy uses to distract, weaken, or confuse you. When you remain undecided about the things I have already placed on your heart, you unintentionally open the door for doubt to take deeper root. Doubt thrives in pauses. Fear expands in hesitation. Confusion grows when clarity is ignored. And the longer you postpone the step you know you need to take, the more room you give the enemy to cloud your vision, distort your confidence, and disrupt the direction I am calling you toward. Undecided places inside you become battlegrounds. You begin wrestling with thoughts that weren't there before, thoughts that question your worth, your direction, your abilities, your discernment. You begin feeling pressure that doesn't come from me, pressure that drains your peace and feeds anxiety. You begin struggling to recognize my voice, not because I've gone silent, but because hesitation makes opposing voices louder. You weren't created to live in limbo. You were created to move with intention, to listen with clarity, to act with courage. When you linger in indecision, you give the enemy time to plant seeds of discouragement that are much harder to uproot later. Delay makes simple steps feel complicated, and small decisions feel impossible. This does not mean you must rush or act carelessly. It means you must not ignore what your spirit already knows. When I call you to move, it's because timing matters spiritually in ways you cannot always see. You don't realize how much is influenced by your willingness to act when I prompt you. Connections, opportunities, protection, healing, alignment. Some blessings are time-sensitive, not because I limit them, but because the enemy seeks to intercept what you hesitate to embrace. Every day you wait to obey, he looks for new angles to discourage you. Every day you postpone healing, he reinforces old wounds. Every day you delay surrender, he strengthens the lies that keep you bound. Every day you delay stepping into purpose, he convinces you that purpose isn't yours. But hear me, this is not a warning meant to scare you. This is a revelation meant to free you. You can't defeat hesitation with more thinking. You defeat it with movement. You cannot silence the enemy by waiting. You silence him by stepping into obedience. You cannot break cycles by analyzing them. You break them by disrupting them. When you act on my voice, the enemy loses the ground he gained. When you move in alignment, the confusion begins to lift. When you choose decisively, the battles that felt overwhelming weaken immediately. This is why delay matters. And this is why I am urging you not to linger where I am calling you forward. You are not stepping into danger. You are stepping out of it. The danger has always been in staying still. The safety is in obedience. The clarity is in action. The victory is in movement. And the moment you decide, the enemy loses access to the place he once used against you. Let the seriousness of this moment rest gently but firmly on your spirit, because the cautions I place in your heart are never meant to overwhelm you. They are meant to protect you from what you cannot yet see. You sometimes felt that the internal warnings rising within you were signs of impending doom or evidence that you were failing. You've interpreted conviction or caution as a form of punishment, as if I were pointing out your flaws to expose them. But understand this clearly. Every warning I send is rooted in love, not fear, protection, not punishment. I see the paths ahead of you, the subtle traps, the emotional pitfalls, the decisions that could wound your spirit, the relationships that could drain your strength, the opportunities that appear appealing but carry quiet harm. When I speak with urgency or nudge you away from something, it is not to restrain your life. It is to safeguard your foundation. My warnings arise from the same love that guides you, comforts you, strengthens you, and heals you. They are woven from compassion, not control. There are moments when you sense my caution yet hesitate, wondering if it is just your imagination. You feel the tension, the pull toward something familiar or exciting mixed with a whisper that something inside it is misaligned. Instead of trusting that whisper, you sometimes reason it away or distract yourself from it. But the warnings I place within you are not to hinder your growth. They are to prevent you from walking into situations that would delay or injure your growth. Think of the times when you ignored that quiet sense of danger and later realized you had stepped into something heavier than expected. And think, too, of the moments when you listened and were spared pain you could not have anticipated. Those reminders are not meant to shame you. They are meant to help you recognize the voice that is saving you even when you don't realize it. When I warn you, it is because you matter to me. Your future matters. Your peace matters. Your healing matters. Your purpose matters. And so I place gentle boundaries, internal alarms, and spiritual signals along your path, not to frighten you, but to guide you away from what threatened your progress. These warnings are invitations to alignment, signals urging you toward decisions that protect your heart and strengthen your steps. You do not need to fear them. You only need to trust that each one carries a depth of love greater than what you've yet understood. Let my caution be a comfort to you, not a burden. Let it awaken discernment, not anxiety. Let it remind you that I am watching over every detail of your journey with eyes that see further than you ever could. When I warn you, it is because I am already standing in the future you are walking toward, and I want you to arrive there whole, steady, and free. Let your heart open to the possibility that what you've been praying for has not been withheld. It's been waiting for your willingness to move, because blessings often rest on the other side of decisions you've delayed. You've asked me for change, growth, restoration, direction, and breakthrough. You imagined what life could look like if certain doors opened or certain weights lifted. Yet you've also held back from taking the steps that align with those very prayers. Not because you lack desire, but because hesitation has woven itself into your decision-making. Hesitation convinces you that obedience must wait until you feel fully ready, fully confident, or fully certain. But readiness grows in the journey, not before it. Many of the blessings prepared for your life are not paused because they are inaccessible. They are paused because they require your participation. The moment you stop standing in uncertainty and begin moving with intention, you unlock what has been aligned for you all along. Blessings are not only gifts, they are results of trust, results of obedience, results of surrender, results of courage. Some are waiting at the threshold you've refused to cross. Some are hidden behind conversations you've been avoiding. Some are connected to choices you've resisted making. Some are tied to releasing habits, relationships, or mindsets that have quietly limited your growth. You've been asking whether these blessings even exist, but the truth is that they are already set aside for you. What's missing is not my willingness, it's your readiness to say yes without conditions, your willingness to move without perfect clarity, your courage to leave behind what no longer aligns with the life you desire. You underestimate how quickly blessings appear once hesitation breaks. The weight you've been carrying lightens. The clarity you've been searching for sharpens. The opportunities you thought were unavailable begin to surface. The relationships that align with your purpose begin to emerge. The peace that felt distant settles into your spirit. When you stop hesitating, you create space for my presence to flow unhindered. Movement activates provision. Obedience activates direction. Surrender activates peace. Trust activates breakthrough. These blessings have not been denied to you. They have been awaiting your agreement with the path I've been preparing. So let this be the moment you loosen hesitation's grip. I'm not asking you to leap recklessly. I'm asking you to stop stalling where you already know you're meant to step. Blessings are prepared. Doors are ready. Opportunities are aligned. And your spirit has already sensed the shift. Stop hesitating, not because of pressure, but because of promise. The blessings you've been hoping for are closer than you think, waiting for the moment your heart finally moves in agreement with what I've already spoken over your life. Let your heart lean into this truth with your full attention, because the struggles you've been wrestling with alone are the very ones I am prepared to fight on your behalf the moment you place them in my hands. You've held on to certain battles because you believed it was your duty to fix them, to manage them, to contain them, or to somehow outthink them. You've tried to push through in your own strength, convincing yourself that if you simply worked harder, prayed more intensely, or stayed emotionally vigilant, you could force a breakthrough. Yet the longer you've tried to manage these battles alone, the more exhausted, frustrated, and spiritually drained you've become. Some of these battles were never meant to be yours to fight in the first place. They drain your strength because they were designed to be carried by my power, not yours. When you continue fighting what I have asked you to surrender, you place yourself under a weight that was always meant to be lifted by me. There's a difference between responsibility and ownership. Responsibility means showing up with faith and willingness. Ownership means believing the outcome depends entirely on you. You've taken ownership of battles that exceed your capability, conflicts within your own heart, internal narratives that echo from old wounds, relational tensions that cannot be fixed through logic alone, generational patterns that reach further back than your own lifetime. These are not fights you can win through emotional strain. These are spiritual battles, and spiritual battles are won when you stop trying to control them and allow me to intervene. Surrender is not passive. Surrender is strategic. It shifts the battle from your limited strength to my limitless strength. It transfers the pressure from your shoulders to mine. It turns the tide in ways you could never achieve through force or fear. You often fear surrender because you believe it means giving up, when in reality, surrender marks the moment the battle starts, being handled by the one who already knows the ending. When you surrender, you open the door for solutions you couldn't see, for peace that doesn't make sense, for clarity that breaks through confusion, and for victory that doesn't depend on human effort. I step into surrendered spaces with authority. Authority to silence voices that torment you. Authority to break cycles that have repeated for years. Authority to shift circumstances that seemed immovable. Some of the battles you face are prolonged only because you've been holding them instead of handing them over. So release them, not halfway, not symbolically, but truly. Hand me the fear you've been carrying in your chest. Hand me the stress that wakes you in the middle of the night. Hand me the emotional knots you can't unravel on your own. Hand me the things that feel too heavy, too complicated, or too painful for you to manage. The moment you surrender is the moment I begin to fight on your behalf. And I do not lose battles. Bring your awareness to the frustration you felt around closed opportunities, because those closed doors have not been rejections. They have been redirections designed to protect your destiny. You've spent time knocking on doors that looked promising, doors that held emotional appeal, doors that aligned with your plans, timelines, or logic. When those doors didn't open, you questioned yourself, your faith, your timing, even your worth. You wondered why certain paths seemed blocked while others remained unreachable. But the truth is not that you are unworthy of opportunities. It's that not every opportunity aligns with who you are becoming. Some doors are attractive but not assigned. Some paths are comfortable but not purposeful. Some relationships or pursuits feel familiar but would have limited your growth or compromised your identity. Closed doors are often my protection disguised as disappointment. You cannot step into the future I've crafted for you while clinging to doors that were never meant to open. You've been knocking, sometimes persistently, on things that cannot carry you into the fullness of your purpose. You've been waiting for validation from places that cannot see your value. You've been longing for approval from situations that were too small to contain what I've placed within you. When you fixate on the wrong door, you miss the one I've been preparing behind you, to your left, or just a few steps ahead. I don't close doors to punish you. I close them because I see danger you can't see, limitations you haven't recognized, and timing you don't yet understand. There are doors ready to open for you, doors that align with your calling, your healing, your growth, and your future. But those doors stay sealed until you stop chasing the ones that drain you. Some doors require your release before they reveal themselves. You need to let go of what is familiar so that what is destined can finally enter your life. You need to shift your focus from proving yourself to positioning yourself. You need to create space in your heart for the opportunities that reflect who you are becoming instead of who you used to be. When you stop knocking on the wrong doors, the right door will open without you forcing it. It will open with clarity, peace, and alignment. The door I have for you will not require begging, pushing, or striving. It will not demand that you shrink yourself to fit inside. It will not confuse you or diminish you. It will welcome you. It will stretch you in healthy ways. It will elevate you. It will align with the person you are growing into. But it will only appear when your heart stops insisting that the wrong door should open. Trust that what is closed for good reason. Trust that what is meant will open in perfect timing. And trust that when the right door opens, you will understand why every wrong door had to stay shut. Let this truth reach the deepest part of your heart, because the breakthrough you've been waiting for does not depend on my willingness to act. I am already willing. It depends on your willingness to release what blocks my movement in your life. You've prayed for me to intervene, to shift circumstances, to bring clarity, to open doors, to heal what has been hurting, and to guide you out of the patterns that drain you. But so often, while asking me to move, you simultaneously hold on to the very things that prevent me from moving freely. You cling to habits that keep you tied to old cycles. You stay connected to relationships that pull your spirit backward. You let fear dictate your choices, even after praying for courage. You ask for direction but hesitate to quiet the noise that confuses your mind. You ask me to bring peace, yet keep feeding the thoughts that stir anxiety. It's not because you're stubborn or disobedient. It's because you're human, and human hearts often hold tightly to what feels familiar, even when it is hurting them. You've been waiting for me to move in ways that do not require something of you, but true transformation always asks for participation. I don't need your strength, perfection, or certainty. What I seek is your permission, your willingness to make room for my presence to work. When you begin releasing what no longer aligns with your healing, you create space for me to bring what will. When you let go of the illusion of control, you position yourself to receive guidance without distortion. When you begin loosening your grip on what drains you, you make room for what restores you. My movement is not blocked by my lack of power. It is blocked by the barriers you've unknowingly built around your heart. This is not a rebuke. It is an invitation. I know why you hold on so tightly. Familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar transformation. Predictable patterns feel easier than courageous steps into the unknown. But understand this. I will never force what you are unwilling to receive. I move most powerfully in surrendered spaces, places where you admit, I cannot do this alone, and open yourself to my wisdom, my timing, and my direction. The moment you allow me to step fully in, you will notice changes you could never have created through effort alone. Internal battles will quiet. Emotional weight will lift. New opportunities will appear. Old patterns will lose their grip. Peace will begin to settle in places where heaviness once lived. So if you want me to move, begin by allowing me to. Release what you're gripping so tightly. Loosen your attachment to the things you've outgrown. Step away from what you know you cannot fix. Let me enter the spaces you've kept closed out of fear or self-protection. I am ready to move, but I will not push past the doors you refuse to open. Let me, and you will see the kind of transformation that can only come through divine involvement. Turn your attention to the inner conversations you've been having with fear, because those negotiations have subtly shaped your decisions more than you realize. Fear hath been whispering scenarios into your mind. What if it doesn't work? What if you fail? What if you get hurt again? What if you're not enough? And you've allowed those whispers to influence the choices you make, the dreams you postpone, and the steps you refuse to take. Fear speaks with authority only when you treat it as if it has earned the right to guide you. But fear has no insight into your future, no understanding of your purpose, and no power to determine what I have planned for your life. It exists only to restrict, not to protect. Yet you've given fear the power of negotiation, allowing it to have opinions on whether you should move forward, whether you're ready, whether you're capable, whether the timing is right. Fear is not your advisor. Fear is not your guardian. Fear is not your truth. It is an intruder that seeks influence by pretending it deserves to be heard. You let fear become part of your internal decision-making process because it often disguises itself as wisdom. It tries to convince you that hesitation is caution, that avoidance is safety, that staying where you are is stability. But true wisdom aligns with peace, not panic. True discernment strengthens you, not shrinks you. True guidance empowers you to act, not paralyze you into silence. When you allow fear to weigh in on decisions that shape your future, you give it authority it was never meant to hold. And the more influence it gains, the more you find yourself living beneath the level of purpose I designed for you. Your destiny cannot be shaped by fear because fear will always pull you backward while I am calling you forward. Every time you negotiate with fear, you delay the life you were meant to step into. You silence the courage I am trying to awaken. You forfeit opportunities you asked me for because fear convinced you to wait for a safer moment that never arrives. Fear does not get to decide who you become. You are shaped by purpose, strengthened by grace, and guided by me, not by the voice that thrives on your uncertainty. Remove fear from the table. Stop inviting it into your decisions. Stop allowing it to question what I have confirmed. Stop letting it predict outcomes it has no authority to foresee. When fear speaks, acknowledge its presence but do not take its counsel. Instead, allow my truth to steady you. Let courage rise, not from your own strength, but from the assurance that I am with you in every step. Your destiny is far too sacred to be shaped by the voice of insecurity. And when you stop negotiating with fear, you open the door for faith to take its rightful place, guiding you, strengthening you, and leading you into the fullness of who you are meant to be. Let this truth reach the center of your spirit, because the doubt that rises within you at the most critical moments is not evidence that I have stepped away. It is evidence that you are approaching territory the enemy does not want you to enter. Doubt often appears right when you begin leaning toward change, right when you consider stepping into purpose, right when you draw near to healing, right when you are on the verge of making a decision that aligns with your destiny. These moments are not random. They are strategic. The enemy does not waste effort where there is no threat. He does not stir confusion in the heart of someone who is stagnant. He does not attack where nothing is shifting. He targets you precisely because something in you is awakening, rising, strengthening, and moving toward a path that will expose his attempts to keep you bound. That sudden wave of uncertainty you feel, the inner questioning, the unexpected insecurity, the urge to retreat, is not a sign you're on the wrong path. It's a sign you're closer than you've ever been to stepping into a freedom the enemy cannot undo. Doubt becomes loud when your spirit draws near to truth. The enemy cannot stop what I have planned for your life, but he can attempt to convince you to step away from it. He uses doubt as a tool, not because doubt is powerful, but because he knows how deeply you long to make the right choices. He twists that longing into pressure, and then tries to disguise that pressure as caution. But hear me clearly. The presence of doubt does not indicate your lack of faith. It indicates the enemy's fear of your faith. It reveals that something in you is shifting, maturing, gaining clarity, and preparing to walk into new levels of strength. The enemy is anxious because he senses the movement inside you that you have only barely begun to recognize. He sees the potential in you even before you fully embrace it. You've assumed that doubt means you are spiritually weak or emotionally unstable. Yet I am telling you that doubt often flares at the edge of breakthrough. It is the last resistance before surrender, the final echo of old thinking before new identity takes root. The enemy pushes hardest when he realizes he is losing influence. So when doubt appears, do not retreat. Do not convince yourself that the uncertainty is proof you're misaligned. Instead, pause and recognize what is happening beneath the surface. You are stepping into territory that carries significance. You are approaching a shift that will alter the landscape of your inner life. You are entering a level of freedom that threatens the darkness that once held you. I am not absent in your doubt. I am present in your discernment. I am strengthening you even as the enemy attempts to shake you. I am guiding you even when confusion tries to cloud the path. Let doubt become a signal, not of danger, but of nearness, nearness to breakthrough, nearness to clarity, nearness to purpose. When you understand this, the enemy loses his weapon, and you regain your confidence. Pay attention to the stirring you feel right now, because the season of postponement has come to its end, and the moment for rising has arrived with unmistakable clarity. You've spent months, maybe years, telling yourself you would take the next step soon. You waited for motivation, waited for confirmation, waited for timing to feel more convenient, waited for emotions to line, waited for life to settle. But waiting has turned into stagnation, and stagnation has slowly dulled the fire within you. Even so, that fire has not died. It has only been buried beneath hesitation, old wounds, and assumptions that you are not ready. But I have watched you carefully, and I know what you are capable of, even in your uncertainty. I know the strength that exists beneath your fatigue, the courage hidden beneath your fear, the hunger for change buried beneath your routine. You have outgrown the season you're still standing in. It's time to rise. This rise is not about perfection. It's not about dramatic gestures or huge leaps. It's about choosing movement over paralysis. You have been circling the same thoughts, revisiting the same emotions, reheating the same doubts, and replaying the same narratives for far too long. There comes a moment where remaining where you are becomes more damaging than stepping into the unknown. That moment is now. The heaviness you feel isn't a sign that you should stay still. It's a sign that staying still is harming you. You're carrying weight that only movement can lift. You're facing battles that only rising can conquer. You're longing for clarity that only obedience can unlock. Rising does not require certainty. It requires willingness. It requires a decision that says, I will no longer live beneath my calling. You don't need to feel strong to rise. Rising is how you regain your strength. You don't need to feel confident to rise. Confidence grows as you walk. You don't need to have every step mapped out. You only need to trust the first one. Everything else unfolds once you choose to stand. And I am with you in the choice. I am with you in the trembling, in the uncertainty, in the vulnerability of beginning again. When you rise, you will not rise alone. My presence surrounds you, my guidance goes before you, and my strength fills the gaps you cannot fill. You have delayed long enough, not because you are failing, but because you are capable of far more than you've allowed yourself to believe. The season of waiting has served its purpose. It has taught you awareness, refined your longing, clarified your heart. But it is not meant to define your future. Step forward. Lift your head. Shake off the discouragement that has tried to cling to your spirit. This is your moment. This is your turning point. This is your rise. Let your spirit recognize the quiet shift happening within you right now, because the strength you've been waiting to feel is not something you gain before moving. It is something that awakens the moment you dare to take the step you've been afraid to take. You've assumed that strength must come first, that confidence must come first, that stability must come first. But I am telling you that your strength is not dormant. It is waiting for activation. You've looked at your life through the lens of your limitations, measuring your abilities by your past failures or your present exhaustion. You've told yourself that you need to be stronger before embracing change, before confronting what scares you, before stepping into the unknown. But strength is not a prerequisite for movement. It is a companion of obedience. It emerges when you trust me enough to do the one thing fear insists you are unprepared for. Your spirit is equipped with more potential than you have ever acknowledged, but you will not access it while standing still. The first step is the key that unlocks everything you have been asking me for: the clarity, the resilience, the courage, the emotional grounding, and the spiritual momentum that have felt out of reach. You've been afraid that stepping forward will expose your weaknesses, but stepping forward is what reveals my strength within you. The new strength I am planting inside you will not feel like a sudden burst of adrenaline or a dramatic wave of empowerment. It will be quiet, steady, and deeply rooted. It will show up in subtle moments, like when you say yes to the conversation you've been avoiding, or when you let go of something that has drained you, or when you choose honesty over self-protection, or when you make a decision without seeking permission from fear. Each moment of courage activates more of the strength I am cultivating in you. You will notice yourself responding differently to challenges that once overwhelmed you. You will find yourself staying calm in situations that once triggered anxiety. You will begin setting boundaries that once felt impossible. You will rediscover parts of yourself, that have been buried beneath years of self-doubt. This strength is not meant to make you intimidating or self-sufficient. It is meant to make you stable, grounded, and spiritually anchored. It will carry you through transitions you once thought would break you. It will help you detach from the voices that once controlled your emotions. It will allow you to walk into rooms you used to shrink in. It will give you the courage to pursue opportunities you previously disqualified yourself from. And all of it will begin, not when you feel ready, but when you choose to move. So stop waiting for strength to arrive before you begin. Begin, and watch how quickly the strength I've placed within you rises to meet your step. Let yourself feel the weight and warmth of this moment, because the urgency you've been sensing is not meant to push you into panic. It is meant to pull you into alignment. You've mistaken purpose for pressure because you've grown used to associating urgency with fear, stress, or the expectation to perform. But what you're feeling now is not the heaviness of being forced. It is the activation of being called. Something within you is waking up, nudging you, stirring you from the inside. It isn't anxiety. It isn't self-imposed pressure. It is the unmistakable tug of purpose that refuses to let you settle in places you have outgrown. Purpose calls gently, but it calls persistently. It keeps rising even when you try to quiet it. It keeps resurfacing even when you distract yourself. It keeps whispering even when you drown it out with noise. The reason you feel this intensity right now is because you are standing at the threshold of a shift, one that will not wait for a more convenient moment. Purpose does not operate on your comfort. It operates on divine timing. You've been trying to figure out whether the urgency you feel is a warning or an invitation. Let me tell you, it is an invitation into something larger than what your current habits, fears, or surroundings have allowed you to imagine. You are being prompted to move, not because you're behind, but because you're ready, even if you don't yet believe it. The urgency you sense is a signal that certain doors are open right now in ways they will not be later. Not because I will close them, but because your growth will guide you into new territories where those specific doors won't be needed anymore. When purpose calls, it doesn't shout. It resonates. It creates a feeling you cannot shake, a feeling that something meaningful is waiting on the other side of a choice, a conversation, a surrender, or a step. You've tried to dismiss this urgency by telling yourself you need more time, more clarity, more confidence, or more predictability. But what you truly need is willingness. Purpose does not require you to understand every detail. It requires you to respond to the pull within you. Purpose is not pressure. It doesn't drain you, rush you, or threaten you. It elevates you. It expands you. It strengthens you. It calls you upward and outward, toward the version of yourself that has been waiting beneath your hesitation. And this urgency you feel right now is simply purpose refusing to let you live an unlived life. So do not fear this urgency. Do not interpret it as stress. Do not silence it because you're used to equating intensity with danger. Purpose speaks with urgency because it knows the value of your next step. It knows the timing is right. It knows you are capable. It knows what's waiting for you. And right now, it is calling your name, not to pressure you, but to guide you into the reason you were created. Let this truth pierce through the fog of hesitation you've been living in, because the perfection you keep waiting for is an illusion that keeps delaying the life you're meant to step into right now. You've been telling yourself that once your emotions stabilize, once your circumstances improve, once the uncertainty fades, once you feel stronger, once you gain more clarity, then you will take the step you've been delaying. But perfection is not a moment that suddenly appears. It is a moment that is created by your willingness to move in faith, even when your surroundings feel unfinished. You've spent so much time analyzing, preparing, predicting, and protecting yourself from imagined futures that you've unintentionally convinced your heart that forward motion requires certainty. It doesn't. Forward motion requires alignment with my voice, my timing, and the quiet courage already stirring inside you. The perfect moment is not arriving in the distance somewhere. The perfect moment is the one you choose to claim, even if it trembles in your hands. You've been holding yourself hostage to unrealistic expectations, perfect timing, perfect emotional readiness, perfect outcomes. These expectations create a prison where nothing ever feels enough. When you wait for complete clarity, you surrender your future to the patterns of your past. When you wait for overwhelming confidence, you deprive yourself of the confidence that grows only after taking action. When you wait for all circumstances to align, you forget that I am the one who aligns them after you begin to move. Perfection is not the absence of flaws, it is the presence of purpose. And purpose is whispering to you even now, calling you into the season that has already opened for you, asking you to step through the doorway that has been waiting for months, maybe even years. Stop waiting for the perfect feeling, because feelings shift like shadows. Stop waiting for the perfect environment, because life rarely stands still long enough to create ideal conditions. Stop waiting for the perfect plan, because your plan will evolve as you walk. What I am offering you is not perfection, but partnership, a path where your willingness meets my guidance, and together we create the clarity you've been longing for. What matters is not whether you feel completely ready. What matters is whether you trust me enough to take the step anyway. Readiness grows through obedience. Strength grows through movement. Clarity grows through experience. So hear me. You are not behind. You are not unprepared. You are not lacking what you need. You are standing on the edge of a moment designed to shift your entire direction. But only if you stop waiting for what will never come. The perfect moment is now, because now is where I am leading you, strengthening you, and calling you. Step into it and watch how every imperfect detail becomes part of a path more beautiful than anything you imagined. Let your heart focus deeply right now, because what you've been experiencing as confusion or emotional noise is not a sign that you lack purpose. It's a sign that you've been drifting away from the quiet places where my voice speaks most clearly. You felt the world's noise increasing around you, conflicting opinions, endless distractions, emotional clutter, internal pressure, and you've wondered why it seems harder to hear direction, harder to feel peace, harder to recognize your next step. The reason is not that I've gone silent. It's that your mind hath been pulled toward the loudest voices instead of the truest one. When you ignore my prompting, even unintentionally, your spirit becomes more vulnerable to the constant demands of the world. You start absorbing stress that doesn't belong to you. You begin carrying expectations that were never meant for you. You allow doubt to sound like wisdom and fear to masquerade as caution. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, your purpose becomes faint. Not because it has vanished, but because it had been drowned beneath the noise you were never meant to carry. That subtle nudge you've been feeling, that sense of direction, that conviction, that draw toward something deeper, has not disappeared. It's simply been buried under layers of distraction and self-protection. You've been living in reactive mode, responding to everything around you, instead of allowing me to guide you from within. You push through your days trying to hold everything together, trying to meet expectations, trying to keep peace with people who drain you, trying to stay productive even when your spirit is exhausted. But deep down, you feel the disconnection. Your purpose feels quieter, less accessible, less vibrant. Not because it's fading, but because you haven't been giving it room to breathe. Listen carefully. Your purpose never competes for attention. It doesn't shout. It doesn't force. It gently nudges, softly stirs, quietly calls. And when you ignore those gentle cues, The world rushes in to fill the silence with noise that overwhelms your heart. You begin believing you're confused, when in reality you're overstimulated. You believe you're directionless, when in reality you're distracted. You believe you're unworthy, when in reality you're simply disconnected from the stillness where your identity becomes clear. I am not condemning you for drifting. I am inviting you back to alignment. I'm calling you back to the quiet where clarity lives, where peace returns, where purpose becomes audible again. You don't need to sort through all the noise, you need only to turn toward me. When you respond to my prompting, even in small ways, the world's noise loses its grip on you. Your purpose begins to feel strong again. Your mind becomes clearer. Your spirit becomes lighter. The confusion lifts. The heaviness softens. And you remember who you are, not shaped by noise, but shaped by truth. So return to my prompting. Lean into the whisper. Follow the tug. Your purpose is not lost. It is waiting beneath the noise you've allowed to settle over your life. And the moment you turn your attention back to me, everything that felt faint becomes unmistakably clear once again. Let your spirit absorb this with full sincerity, because every moment you resist the quiet pull I've placed inside you is a moment you remain outside the life that was always meant to empower you, energize you, and lift the weight you've been carrying alone. You felt this pull many times, an inner tug toward growth, a nudge to release something heavy, a whisper urging you to shift your habits, an invitation to heal in areas you've tried to ignore. And yet, instead of responding, you've often hesitated, rationalizing your delay with thoughts that sound practical but stem from fear. I'm not ready yet, it might cost too much, what if I fail, what if I lose something important? Every time you've resisted, you've convinced yourself that staying in place is safer than stepping into what is unfamiliar. But what you haven't realized is that staying in place keeps you living in patterns that drain your spirit instead of restoring it. What you resist is the very thing designed to strengthen you. The direction I'm pulling you toward isn't meant to burden you. It's meant to free you from burdens you no longer need to carry. Inside you there is a future version of yourself that you feel glimpses of in moments of clarity. Stronger, calmer, more at peace, more aligned with purpose, more anchored in truth. You sense this version of yourself during quiet moments, in worship, in prayer, in reflection, or when something stirs inside you that feels both familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. That stirring is not imagination. It is identity. It is the direction your life is meant to move toward. But resistance creates a divide between who you are becoming and who you continually revert back to. The resistance doesn't mean you are rebellious. It means you are scared of losing the comfort of the familiar, even when the familiar hath been slowly depleting your joy. You hold on to routines that no longer nourish you, relationships that no longer respect your growth, and coping mechanisms that no longer soothe you. You resist because the unknown feels intimidating. But the unknown is where your strength is waiting. You don't see what I see. You don't see the strength I designed inside you before you ever faced a single hardship. You don't see the resilience in you that your past struggles awakened. You don't see the capacity for courage you've already built through every storm you survived. I'm not pulling you into something that will weaken you. I am pulling you into something that will make you finally feel alive again. When you respond to my pull, clarity returns. When you respond, heaviness lifts. When you respond, emotional knots begin to loosen. When you respond, you step into a life that feels like breathing clean air after years of suffocating on expectations and pressure. The longer you resist, the longer you remain outside the peace you've been begging me for. But the moment you respond, even if it's messy, even if it's trembling, even if it's imperfect, you open the door to the life you were meant to inhabit. That life is not far from you. It is one surrendered yes away. Let go of resistance, and let me lead you into the strength that has been waiting for you all along. Turn your attention inward, because the whisper you've been hearing for years, the one you've labeled as imagination, impulse, or unrealistic longing, is actually the sound of your calling, and it has been waiting patiently for you to stop running from what was always meant to be yours. You felt this calling surface at inconvenient moments, when life quiets, when your guard drops, when you encounter something that awakens a forgotten passion, when you see someone walking in a purpose that mirrors the hidden dreams inside you. The feeling rises, then you push it down. Not because you don't want it, but because it feels too big, too costly, too sacred. You question whether you're qualified. You wonder if you're capable. You fear what might change if you accept what I've placed inside you. So instead of stepping toward it, you distract yourself with tasks, routines, responsibilities, and obligations that feel safer because they require no vulnerability. You've been running, not away from burden, but away from identity. And the truth is this: your calling has never stopped pursuing you, because it was woven into your spirit before you ever took your first breath. Your calling is the reason certain things move you while others don't. It's the reason you feel restless in environments that don't match your purpose. It's the reason certain conversations spark something deep inside you, making you feel more awake than you felt in months. It's the reason you feel out of place in certain seasons. You weren't designed to stay where you've been. And no matter how many times you try to silence it, your calling finds new ways to surface, not to pressure you, but to remind you that who you are meant to become is still waiting inside you. Running from your calling doesn't quiet it. It only amplifies the emptiness you feel when you try to live outside your purpose. I am not asking you to chase your calling in your own strength. I am asking you to stop running from the voice that has been trying to lead you into the most meaningful chapter of your life. Your calling will not demand perfection. It will not demand that you have everything figured out. It will not demand that you become someone else. It simply demands that you stop hiding from what already belongs to you. What you fear is not the calling. It's the version of yourself that will emerge once you step into it. That version of you is powerful, aligned, courageous, clear-minded, rooted, and purposeful. And that version of you feels intimidating only because you've spent so long shrinking yourself to fit into places that were never meant to contain you. Your calling is not loud because it doesn't need to be. It knows that eventually you will get tired of running. You will grow weary of living a life that doesn't fit your spirit. You will feel the weight of staying in places that lack meaning. And when that moment comes, as it is coming now, you will hear me whispering again, "This is what you were made for. This is why you survived what you survived. This is why you felt restless. This is why you couldn't settle." Your calling is waiting, not to pressure you, but to welcome you home to yourself. You are closer to it than you realize. All you need to do is stop running. Let it rise. Let it speak. And step into the life your spirit has been longing for. Let your awareness sharpen for a moment, because the guidance you've been pleading for is not missing. It is simply being overshadowed by your fear of following what you already know is true. You've been praying for clarity, waiting for a sign that feels unmistakable, hoping for a moment where every doubt dissolves and every question receives a perfect, detailed answer. But direction has been present all along, in the conviction that refuses to fade, in the idea that keeps returning no matter how many times you push it away, in the restlessness that grows louder each time you choose comfort over calling. You've mistaken my clarity for your own uncertainty. It's not that I haven't spoken. It's that you've been waiting for a version of direction that feels easier to obey. You want a path that doesn't require risk, that doesn't require you to release anything familiar, that doesn't stretch you beyond your current identity. But direction rarely appears in a form that feels safe. It appears in the place where your spirit knows the next step, but your mind argues against it. I illuminate your path one step at a time, not because I want to withhold details, but because I want your trust, not your fear, to guide your movement. You've been trying to align my voice with your comfort, but purpose often calls you in ways that feel inconvenient. You sense what you need to do, yet you wait for confirmation that eliminates all potential discomfort. You feel the pull toward new habits, new boundaries, new environments, new relationships, or new responsibilities. Yet you ask for direction while resisting the one direction that keeps rising within you like a tide. I've placed clarity inside you, not outside of you. The path I am lighting is not found in the opinions of others, the approval you seek, or the signs you keep scanning for. The path is already beneath your feet. Every time your heart swells with conviction, every time a decision feels heavy because it leads toward growth, every time peace settles behind one choice and anxiety lingers behind the other, you are receiving direction. But clarity becomes distorted when you allow fear to argue more loudly than truth. You haven't missed your path. You haven't fallen behind. You haven't made a decision so wrong that you derailed your future. You simply haven't acted on the guidance you've already been given. And I say this not to shame you, but to free you. You don't need a new sign. You need courage to trust the sign that keeps returning, the step that keeps calling, the truth that keeps echoing in your spirit even when you try to silence it. What you're asking me for is already in your hands. What you're waiting for has already been revealed. What you're longing for is already accessible. Walk into the direction I've given, and the next step will appear. Let the clarity I've placed within you become louder than the fear that keeps you still. I'm not hiding the path, you're standing on it. Let this declaration settle into the deepest parts of you, because the season you are entering is one where I will begin interrupting every force, thought, pattern, or influence that has tried to shriek you, silence you, or convince you that you are less than what I created you to be. You've lived under the weight of limitations, some placed on you by others, some whispered to you by your own fears, and some built slowly from wounds you never fully healed. These limitations have shaped the way you speak about yourself, the way you think about your future, and the level of boldness you allow yourself to walk in. You've gotten used to dimming your light so others feel comfortable, adjusting your personality so you don't feel too much, lowering your expectations so disappointment feels less likely, hiding your gifts because being overlooked felt safer than being seen. But everything that has tried to keep you small is about to lose its grip, because I am stepping into the narrative of your life with intention. Intention to expand you, strengthen you, and reveal the parts of you that fear worked hard to suppress. This interruption will not begin with dramatic external events. It will begin with quiet internal shifts. You will start noticing that certain old thoughts feel unusually heavy, that certain patterns no longer satisfy you, that certain environments feel too tight for your spirit, that certain relationships no longer align with who you're becoming. You will begin feeling bolder, not recklessly, but truthfully. You will feel the urge to speak up where you once stayed silent. You will feel the desire to try things you once disqualified yourself from. You will sense a rising confidence that doesn't come from ego, but from identity, a confidence that comes from finally seeing yourself the way I see you. And as this happens, everything that once kept you small will feel increasingly incompatible with the person you are growing into. This is not you changing too much. This is you finally stepping into your actual self. When I interrupt what has limited you, I don't do it gently. I do it thoroughly. I dismantle lies you believed for years. I expose patterns that once controlled your choices. I remove influences that drained your spirit. I reorder your desires so that what once captivated you no longer appeals to you. I expand your vision so that your old ceilings become your new floors. This interruption may feel uncomfortable at first, because growth often requires shedding old layers. But the discomfort is temporary. The expansion is permanent. I am not shrinking your world. I am enlarging it. I am not stripping your identity. I am revealing it. I am not breaking you down. I am breaking you free. Prepare yourself for expansion. You are stepping into a chapter that will not allow you to stay small. The world inside you is awakening, and everything that once intimidated you will soon be replaced with a strength you didn't know you possessed. I am interrupting the limits that life, pain, and fear tried to place on you, and ushering you into the fullness you were always meant to carry. Let your awareness sharpen for a moment, because the guidance you've been pleading for is not missing. It is simply being overshadowed by your fear of following what you already know is true. You've been praying for clarity, waiting for a sign that feels unmistakable, hoping for a moment where every doubt dissolves and every question receives a perfect, detailed answer. But direction has been present all along, in the conviction that refuses to fade, in the idea that keeps returning no matter how many times you push it away, in the restlessness that grows louder each time you choose comfort over calling. You've mistaken my clarity for your own uncertainty. It's not that I haven't spoken, it's that you've been waiting for a version of direction that feels easier to obey. You want a path that doesn't require risk, that doesn't require you to release anything familiar, that doesn't stretch you beyond your current identity. But direction rarely appears in a form that feels safe. It appears in the place where your spirit knows the next step, but your mind argues against it. I illuminate your path one step at a time, not because I want to withhold details, but because I want your trust, not your fear, to guide your movement. You've been trying to align my voice with your comfort, but purpose often calls you in ways that feel inconvenient. You sense what you need to do, yet you wait for confirmation that eliminates all potential discomfort. You feel the pull toward new habits, new boundaries, new environments, new relationships, or new responsibilities, yet you ask for direction while resisting the one direction that keeps rising within you like a tide. I've placed clarity inside you, not outside of you. The path I am lighting is not found in the opinions of others, the approval you seek, or the signs you keep scanning for. The path is already beneath your feet. Every time your heart swells with conviction, every time a decision feels heavy because it leads toward growth, every time peace settles behind one choice and anxiety lingers behind the other, you are receiving direction. But clarity becomes distorted when you allow fear to argue more loudly than truth. You haven't missed your path. You haven't fallen behind. You haven't made a decision so wrong that you derailed your future. You simply haven't acted on the guidance you've already been given. And I say this not to shame you, but to free you. You don't need a new sign. You need courage to trust the sign that keeps returning, the step that keeps calling, the truth that keeps echoing in your spirit even when you try to silence it. What you're asking me for is already in your hands. What you're waiting for has already been revealed. What you're longing for is already accessible. Walk into the direction I've given, and the next step will appear. Let the clarity I've placed within you become louder than the fear that keeps you still. I'm not hiding the path, you're standing on it. Let this declaration settle into the deepest parts of you, because the season you are entering is one where I will begin interrupting every force, thought, pattern, or influence that has tried to shrink you, silence you, or convince you that you are less than what I created you to be. You've lived under the weight of limitations, some placed on you by others, some whispered to you by your own fears, and some built slowly from wounds you never fully healed. These limitations have shaped the way you speak about yourself, the way you think about your future, and the level of boldness you allow yourself to walk in. You've gotten used to dimming your light so others feel comfortable, adjusting your personality so you don't feel too much, lowering your expectations so disappointment feels less likely, hiding your gifts because being overlooked felt safer than being seen. But everything that has tried to keep you small is about to lose its grip, because I am stepping into the narrative of your life with intention to expand you, strengthen you, and reveal the parts of you that fear worked hard to suppress. This interruption will not begin with dramatic external events. It will begin with quiet internal shifts. You will start noticing that certain old thoughts feel unusually heavy, that certain patterns no longer satisfy you, that certain environments feel too tight for your spirit, that certain relationships no longer align with who you're becoming. You will begin feeling bolder, not recklessly, but truthfully. You will feel the urge to speak up where you once stayed silent. You will feel the desire to try things you once disqualified yourself from. You will sense a rising confidence that doesn't come from ego, but from identity, a confidence that comes from finally seeing yourself the way I see you. And as this happens, everything that once kept you small will feel increasingly incompatible with the person you are growing into. This is not you changing too much. This is you finally stepping into your actual self. When I interrupt what has limited you, I don't do it gently, I do it thoroughly. I dismantle lies you believed for years. I expose patterns that once controlled your choices. I remove influences that drained your spirit. I reorder your desires so that what once captivated you no longer appeals to you. I expand your vision so that your old ceilings become your new floors. This interruption may feel uncomfortable at first, because growth often requires shedding old layers. But the discomfort is temporary. The expansion is permanent. I am not shrinking your world. I am enlarging it. I am not stripping your identity. I am revealing it. I am not breaking you down. I am breaking you free. Prepare yourself for expansion. You are stepping into a chapter that will not allow you to stay small. The world inside you is awakening, and everything that once intimidated you will soon be replaced with a strength you didn't know you possessed. I am interrupting the limits that life, pain, and fear tried to place on you, and ushering you into the fullness you were always meant to carry. Let this truth settle into the deepest place within you, because the thing you've been calling delay is not a delay caused by heaven. It is a delay created by your hesitation to step into what has already been prepared for you. Breakthrough is not some distant blessing that must be earned through perfection or unlocked through extraordinary effort. It is something I positioned within reach long before you ever felt desperate for change. The moment you cried out for clarity, the moment you whispered for help, the moment your heart opened even slightly, I began arranging circumstances, shaping opportunities, softening what once felt hardened, and preparing doors that only required one thing: your willingness. But somewhere along the way, you convinced yourself that breakthrough was something external, something grand and dramatic, something that would descend upon your life suddenly and unmistakably. So you waited, hoping for a moment that would feel supernatural enough to guarantee safety, guarantee success, guarantee certainty. Yet breakthrough rarely appears before movement. It manifests through movement. It becomes visible once you align your steps with the truth stirring inside you. You've been telling yourself you're not ready, but readiness has never been the gateway to breakthrough. Openness has. Obedience has. Trust has. You've been analyzing your feelings, expecting peace to appear before action, expecting courage to flood your heart before commitment, expecting reassurance to silence every fear before you dare to begin. But peace grows once you step into the direction I've been drawing you toward. Courage rises once you challenge fear instead of negotiating with it. Reassurance strengthens once you make a decision rather than waiting for a perfect sign. Breakthrough has been waiting not for your perfection, but for your yes. And not a forceful yes, not a pressured yes, but a trusting yes. One that acknowledges that even if you don't know the full path ahead, you know the one who walks it with you. You may think you lack power because you still feel uncertain, restless, or emotionally fragile. But breakthrough isn't about feelings, it's about alignment. You align with breakthrough when you step away from the habits that keep you stuck, when you release what has been stealing your energy, when you stop shrinking your dreams to match your fears. You align with breakthrough when you take the step you've been postponing, when you choose growth over comfort, when you refuse to keep living the same cycle simply because it's familiar. And once you align, breakthrough rushes in, not cautiously, not timidly, but with the kind of force that reshapes the atmosphere of your life. You begin to see options where you once saw obstacles. You begin to feel peace where you once felt panic. You begin to think differently, speak differently, walk differently. Not because something magical happened from the outside, but because you finally stepped into the life that has been waiting for you the entire time. Breakthrough is not waiting for a better version of you. Breakthrough is waiting for the willing version of you. The version that trusts my timing more than your fear. The version that recognizes that the moment you move, heaven moves with you. Lean into this moment with honesty, because the version of yourself that feels intimidating, unfamiliar, or too much is not an exaggeration of who you are meant to be. It is the truest expression of you finally coming alive. You've caught glimpses of that version before, the stronger you, the clearer you, the grounded you, the bold you, the peaceful you, the healed you. And every time those glimpses surfaced, something inside you stirred with recognition, as if your spirit whispered, "There I am." Yet instead of embracing that rising identity, you stepped back. You questioned whether you were capable. You wondered if stepping into that version of yourself would cost too much. Relationships, approval, comfort, familiarity. You worried people would misunderstand you, resent your growth, or no longer benefit from the lesser version of you they've gotten used to. So you shrank. You softened your desires. You downplayed your gifts. You quieted your convictions. You dimmed your own light because shining felt risky in a world that preferred your silence. What you haven't realized is that the version of you you're afraid to become is not a new version. It's your original design. It's the version of you that existed before fear began editing your voice, before rejection taught you to hide, before disappointment convinced you to lower your expectations, before insecurity built walls around your potential. That version of you is not unrealistic. It's redeemed. It's healed. It's restored. It's aligned with what I placed inside you before life placed weight upon you. And the reason it feels intimidating is not because it's too big, but because it's too honest. It reveals who you truly are. It reveals what you're capable of. It reveals that your life is meant for far more than what you've been settling for. And stepping into that version of yourself requires courage, the courage to stop living for the comfort of others and start living in alignment with your calling. You fear becoming that version because it demands change. It demands boundaries where you once tolerated disrespect. It demands truth where you once accepted silence. It demands healing where you once avoided pain. It demands faith where you once surrendered to fear. But everything it demands, it also supplies. This version of you will not drain you. It will energize you. It will not confuse you. It will clarify you. It will not isolate you. It will align you with people who recognize your worth. It will not burden you. It will free you from roles, expectations, and patterns that have kept you emotionally small. So hear me. This version of you is not too bold, too passionate, too gifted, too emotional, too spiritual, too ambitious, or too intense. It is exact. It is intentional. It is designed. And I have been preparing you for it all along. You are not stepping into someone you are not. You are stepping back into who you were always meant to be. Let this truth touch you in a place you've been trying to explain, because the spiritual restlessness you've been feeling is not a flaw in you. It's evidence that you've outgrown the level you've been living in, and your spirit refuses to shrink back into what no longer fits. You've wondered why you feel unsettled even when nothing appears wrong on the surface. You've questioned why things that once satisfied you no longer bring peace, why activities that used to energize you now leave you drained, why conversations you once tolerated now feel heavy, why environments you once navigated with ease now feel suffocating or misaligned. This inner stirring isn't confusion, it's awakening. Your spirit recognizes a higher place you've been called into, even before your mind fully understands it. Restlessness isn't the absence of direction. It's the signal that your current level has completed its assignment in your life. You've been trying to make yourself comfortable in circumstances that were only meant to be temporary. You've been trying to hold together relationships that were meant to shape you for a season, not accompany you forever. You've been trying to maintain habits that cannot sustain the weight of who you're becoming. And because your spirit knows the truth, every attempt to remain in the familiar has begun to feel heavier than before. You are not breaking down, you are breaking open. You are shedding an identity you no longer need, stepping out of patterns that no longer serve you, and loosening your grip on versions of yourself that were built from survival, not calling. Spiritual restlessness appears when you reach the threshold between who you've been and who you're becoming. You've tried to soothe this restlessness with distractions, with busyness, with explanations that made sense to your mind but not to your soul. You've tried to convince yourself that if you just waited a little longer, the discomfort would fade. But restlessness doesn't fade. It intensifies until you pay attention to what it's revealing. It's pulling you toward a life with more depth, more clarity, more truth, more alignment, more purpose. It's urging you to stop settling for versions of living that no longer reflect the person you are evolving into. It's nudging you to step into emotional maturity, spiritual authority, and personal responsibility in ways you've never embraced before. The restlessness is a gift. It's my way of telling you that you cannot return to who you once were. It's my signal that new doors are opening, new identity is forming, and new strength is rising. You are being called upward, into deeper healing, into clearer thinking, into greater stability, into bolder choices. And as long as you resist this transition, the discomfort will persist, not as punishment but as guidance. When you finally stop running from the shift, you'll realize that what felt like restlessness was actually the gentle pressure of destiny pushing you into your next level. Pause and absorb this moment honestly, because you are closer to transformation than you've ever realized, and the only thing separating you from it is the final excuse you keep returning to when fear whispers its familiar arguments. You've made progress, more than you give yourself credit for. You've healed wounds that once controlled you. You've overcome battles that would have broken the old version of you. You've recognized patterns you used to be blind to. You've let go of people you once believed you couldn't live without. You've grown in ways that your past self never imagined possible. And yet, despite all of this, one lingering barrier remains: the excuse you hold on to when you feel the weight of responsibility that transformation requires. You know exactly which excuse it is. It's the one you repeat when the next step feels intimidating. The one you use to justify staying comfortable. The one that sounds reasonable but is built entirely from fear. It's the excuse that says, "I'm not ready," even though your heart has been preparing for years. The excuse that says, "What if I fail?" though failure taught you half of your strength. The excuse that says, "Maybe later," even though later has only kept you stuck. That excuse has become your hiding place, a shield you lift when courage begins to rise, a barrier you lean on when responsibility begins calling, a justification you use to avoid the vulnerability that growth demands. But hear me, you are standing at the threshold of transformation, and the only thing preventing you from stepping through is the story you keep telling yourself about why now is not the right time. Transformation isn't waiting for more clarity or more resources or more confidence. It's waiting for surrender. Surrender of your excuses, your self-protective narratives, your fears disguised as wisdom. Once that excuse falls, you will move with an ease you didn't know was possible. You will feel momentum where you once felt stagnation. You will sense alignment where you once felt conflict. You will regain energy that was spent maintaining a version of your life that was never meant to be permanent. Transformation doesn't require you to be fearless. It requires honesty. It requires acknowledging the ways you've been holding yourself back. It requires releasing the belief that you must feel completely prepared before you begin. It requires faith, not blind faith, but the kind of trust that says, even if I don't know everything, I know enough to take the next step. And I have already prepared the ground beneath your feet for that next step. I've positioned the right people, the right timing, the right opportunities. Everything is aligned, except your willingness to let go of the excuse that keeps you safely unchanged. Let this be the moment you surrender it. Let this be the moment you stop protecting your fears and begin protecting your future. You are standing at the edge of transformation, and surrendering your last excuse is what will finally carry you across. Let this awareness rise inside you without resistance, because the reason you've been sensing a shift, long before anything around you seems to justify it, is that your spirit has already crossed into a future your mind is still trying to comprehend. You feel this strange mixture of anticipation and tension, a pull towards something you can't fully describe, a quiet knowing that something in your life is changing beneath the surface. You've wondered why you feel different, why old desires no longer grip you, why certain conversations drain you, why familiar environments feel foreign, why your heart feels too big for the space you've been living in. What you're experiencing is not confusion. It is the evidence that your spirit has stepped ahead, stepping into alignment with the person you're becoming, while your thoughts remain anchored in old expectations, old fears, and old limitations. This internal disconnect is uncomfortable, but it is divine. It is the sensation of growing spiritually faster than you are growing mentally, and now your mind is trying to make sense of what your spirit already knows. Your spirit sees things your consciousness can't yet articulate. It senses the doors that are forming, the opportunities that are being arranged, the relationships that are aligning, the healing that is unfolding, the strength that is awakening. Your spirit knows that certain seasons are ending, even before the evidence appears in your circumstances. This is why you've been feeling restless, because your inner world has already stepped out of the old chapter while your outer world is still catching up. You're not lost. You're transitioning. You're not unsteady. You're expanding. You're not confused. You're awakening to a new level of clarity that your current mindset hasn't yet adjusted to. And this adjustment period is sacred. It's where old patterns loosen their hold, and new identity begins to take shape. Do not mistake this inner shift for instability. You are not falling apart. You are outgrowing what once felt normal. Your spirit is preparing you for conversations you will soon have, decisions you will soon make, opportunities you will soon walk into, and breakthroughs that require a deeper version of you. The future I've prepared is not waiting for you, it's calling to you. And your spirit responded before you consciously knew how to. This is why certain urges have been rising, urges to clean out emotional clutter, urges to return to disciplines you once abandoned, urges to detach from draining influences, urges to embrace internal truth over external expectations. These urges aren't random. They are signs that your spirit is already standing in the place you are destined to reach. Your mind will catch up. Your emotions will steady. Your confidence will rise. But for now, embrace this tension as proof that something new has begun. Trust the shift you feel, even if you can't yet see its full form. You're not ahead of yourself. You're ahead of who you used to be. And everything inside you is preparing you for the moment your future becomes your present. Quiet your heart for a moment and recognize the truth beneath your struggle, because the battle you're facing is not a reflection of your inadequacy. It is evidence that something powerful in you has awakened and disrupted the enemy's comfort. You've wondered why attacks have intensified, why insecurities have resurfaced, why old fears are trying to reclaim territory you've already surrendered, why exhaustion hits you at the exact moment you try to move forward. But battles do not rise because you are weak. They rise because you have stepped into strength that threatens everything that once held you stagnant. There is something inside you, something bold, something awake, something determined, that has shifted the spiritual atmosphere around you. The enemy is not fighting you because you are vulnerable. He is fighting you because you have become dangerous to him. Your awakening has unsettled the darkness you once tolerated. You've been interpreting your struggle as a sign that you are failing or falling behind. But I am telling you that the opposite is true. Pressure increases when progress becomes real. Temptation intensifies when purpose draws near. Obstacles become louder when you begin moving toward freedom. Internal resistance rises when old versions of you realize their time is running out. This battle is not punishment. It is confirmation. Confirmation that you are changing. Confirmation that you are stepping away from patterns that once controlled you. Confirmation that healing is taking root, that clarity is forming, that resilience is building, and that identity is shifting. The enemy doesn't waste energy on areas where you pose no threat. He strikes where he senses growth, where he feels movement, where he fears breakthrough. There is a warrior in you that you haven't fully recognized yet. A strength that was buried beneath trauma and self-doubt. A fire that life tried to extinguish. A boldness that fear tried to suppress. A resilience that hardship tried to erode. That warrior is awake now, taking shape, gathering courage, rising with intensity. And this awakening is why the battle feels so fierce. You're not being destroyed. You're being sharpened. You're not being overwhelmed. You're being activated. You're not being pulled backward. You're being pushed into levels of authority you didn't know you carried. Do not let this battle make you question your progress. Let it confirm that you're on the precise path you're meant to be walking. Let it remind you that your spirit is stronger than you realize. Let it show you that you're no longer controlled by the things that used to break you. You are confronting the very forces that once dictated your choices, and they are losing. You feel the resistance because you are shifting the landscape of your inner life in ways that terrify the darkness. And soon, what feels like warfare will reveal itself as transformation. The battle is not here to stop you. It is here to announce that your strength has finally awakened. Let this understanding sink into you with a weight that brings clarity rather than fear, because the battles you've endured were never random. Every attack that came against you was a desperate attempt to stop a strength inside you that even you had not yet discovered. You've asked yourself many times why certain seasons felt unfairly heavy, why you faced emotional storms that seemed disproportionate to your life, why you encountered betrayal that cut deeper than expected, why anxiety tried to suffocate your progress, and why discouragement seemed relentlessly timed to appear whenever you were on the verge of movement. None of this was coincident. The enemy does not attack where nothing is at stake. He does not waste time on lives that pose no threat to his plans. You have been targeted precisely because of the influence, resilience, and spiritual capacity that are woven into your identity, qualities you've only begun to glimpse. The enemy saw your potential long before you believed you had any. He recognized the authority forming inside you, the courage that would eventually rise in you, and the purpose that would awaken once you stepped into alignment. You interpreted many battles as signs of weakness, but I am telling you, they were signs of significance. Had the enemy believed you were small, unnoticed, or spiritually powerless, he would have left you alone. But he saw that you were destined to break generational patterns, to disrupt emotional cycles, to heal in areas where others gave up, and to carry a presence that brings clarity, peace, and change wherever you go. He fought hard because he feared what would happen the moment you realized who you truly are. He tried to bury you beneath fear so you would never discover your voice. He tried to overwhelm your heart so you would never trust your own discernment. He tried to twist your identity so you would settle for a life far smaller than the one I have written for you. You survived battles that would have shattered others not because you were lucky, but because you were protected. Every time something came to break you, I stepped between the blow and your spirit. Every time darkness tried to smother your hope, I breathed strength into you. Every time discouragement tried to drain your will, I preserved the spark of resilience the enemy could not extinguish. He struck repeatedly because he believed he could wear you down. But what he failed to understand is that the more pressure he placed on you, the more capacity I built within you. Every wound became wisdom. Every setback became strategy. Every hardship became an inner strengthening that now positions you for the season ahead. You were not attacked because you were weak. You were attacked because you were dangerous to darkness. And now, the same strength the enemy tried to destroy is the strength that is rising to lead you into the most powerful chapter of your life. Allow this revelation to settle into your spirit with boldness, because the shift occurring inside you is preparing you for a season where the very things that once intimidated you will begin to lose their power the moment you stand in your truth. You've spent years feeling overpowered by circumstances, emotions, and uncertainties. You felt the weight of fear pressing against your decisions. You've held yourself back because you were convinced you were not strong enough, wise enough, healed enough, or prepared enough to confront what stood before you. But that version of you is fading, and a new one is emerging, one shaped through endurance, refined through brokenness, strengthened through persistence, and awakened through countless moments where you stood back up even when you felt like collapsing. The rise happening within you is not fueled by ego or ambition. It is fueled by identity, finally recognized, finally embraced, and finally ready to be expressed. Fear once ruled you because you didn't know your authority. Anxiety once controlled you because you didn't understand your voice. Insecurity once shaped your choices because you didn't recognize your worth. But now, after everything you survived, something inside you refuses to go back to the old you. You are starting to see your value. You are beginning to discern truth from lies. You are learning the difference between intuition and fear. You are recognizing what is aligned with you and what is draining you. And as this awareness deepens, fear loses its disguise. The shadows that once intimidated you begin to shrink. The worries that once kept you paralyzed begin to lose credibility. The challenges that once overwhelmed you begin to look conquerable. You are stepping into a season where clarity becomes your armor, identity becomes your anchor, and discernment becomes your compass. This next chapter is not about dodging battles. It is about walking into them with a strength that transforms the atmosphere. It is about carrying a presence that unsettles anything that once tried to control you. It is about moving with confidence that does not come from external security but from inner alignment. When I say fear will begin to fear you, I mean that the spiritual and emotional patterns that once held authority over your life will lose power the moment you stand in the truth of who you've become. Anxiety will loosen its grip because you will recognize it as a signal, not a destiny. Insecurity will fade because you will finally see how deeply you are supported. Doubt will weaken because you will no longer accept its narrative. The enemy will retreat because he will see that the version of you rising now is not the version he fought before. You are transforming from someone who responded to fear into someone fear responds to. You are becoming someone who walks with a presence that shifts the room. You are entering a season where your strength will speak before you do, where your clarity will silence confusion, and where your growth will disarm everything that once intimidated you. You are not becoming powerful. You are realizing you always were. Let your heart open fully to this truth, because the seasons you believed were destroying you were actually strengthening you in ways you could not have understood at the time. You looked at the pressure you were under and thought something had gone wrong. You assumed the heaviness meant you were losing yourself, that the pain meant you were falling apart, that the unanswered questions and sleepless nights were evidence that you were failing. But all along, the stretching, the pulling, the uncomfortable transitions were preparing you for a level of influence, clarity, and spiritual maturity that you were not yet equipped to hold. You did not break under the weight. You expanded beneath it. You did not collapse, you were reformed. Every moment that felt too heavy was actually shaping the interior of your spirit, enlarging your capacity to carry what is coming next. There are blessings attached to your future that require depth you did not have until life pressed you deeper. Influence requires stability, and stability is formed through seasons that felt unstable. Clarity requires contrast, and contrast often arrives through circumstances that challenge your understanding. Wisdom requires experience, and experience is rarely gathered through ease. The weight you felt was me strengthening you for responsibilities, opportunities, relationships, and callings that would have overwhelmed a former version of you. You thought you were being buried, but you were being rooted. You thought you were being stretched too thin, but you were being expanded. You thought the pressure was punishment, but it was preparation. There were days when you questioned me, asking why certain prayers felt delayed, why breakthroughs seemed distant, why healing took longer than you expected. But if I had lifted the weight too soon, you would have lost the very strength you needed for the next season. You have been enduring spiritual resistance not because you are weak, but because you are called to carry more than what you once believed possible. And the weight you carried has sharpened your discernment. You now see through illusions you once fell for. You now recognize patterns you once repeated. You now sense danger earlier than before. Your spirit responds to truth more quickly. Your heart recovers faster. Your resilience rises sooner. All of this is the result of the pressure that once frightened you. What looked like breaking was actually building. What felt like loss was actually pruning. What seemed like abandonment was actually realignment. I did not let the weight crush you. I used it to strengthen the foundation beneath you. And now, as you step into the next chapter, you will realize the wisdom behind every challenge. You were not being disqualified. You were being prepared for a calling that requires someone who had been refined, not someone who has simply been comforted. You are ready for more because you were willing to endure what others walked away from. And now the weight will become purpose, and the pressure will become power. Let your heart soften to this truth, because the discomfort you've been feeling lately is not a sign that something is going wrong. It is the sign that I am removing the last remaining ties to the version of yourself you've already outgrown. You've been sensing a shift, an internal unraveling, a quiet release happening in corners of your life you once clung to tightly. Old desires are fading, even though you don't fully understand why. People who once felt central to your world now feel distant or misaligned. Habits that once soothed you now feel empty. Environments that once seemed comfortable now feel restrictive. This is not loss, it is liberation. I am loosening your grip on things that once served you but can no longer carry you forward. The things you're being pulled away from are not wrong. They are simply too small for who you are becoming. You've grown in ways you haven't fully recognized. Your values have shifted. Your spirit has matured. Your emotional thresholds have changed. You crave deeper connection, deeper purpose, deeper truth. You feel restless when you settle, uneasy when you shrink, disappointed when you compromise. These reactions are signs that your identity is elevating. And in this elevation, certain attachments can no longer remain. These attachments may be mindsets that kept you stuck in cycles of overthinking. They may be inner vows you made out of fear. They may be relationships built on your old wounds instead of your healed self. They may be dreams that belong to an earlier stage of your life. Whatever they are, I am removing them gently but firmly, because they cannot accompany you into the season I have designed for you. Letting go feels painful because part of you still remembers what these attachments meant to you at one time. But letting go is not the same as losing. Letting go is alignment. It is choosing truth over comfort. It is releasing what drains you so you can receive what strengthens you. It is stepping away from identities built on survival and stepping into identities built on purpose. You have held on to certain things not because they were right, but because they were familiar. But familiarity is not the same as destiny. And now, your destiny is calling with a volume that makes resistance impossible. I am removing these attachments not to isolate you, but to prepare room for the people, opportunities, clarity, and healing that match your next level. The spaces created by release will not remain empty. They will be filled with what aligns with your growth. Trust the process. The detaching you feel is not the end of a story. It is the final clearing before expansion. You are being freed from the last fragments of who you once were so that you can finally step fully into who you are destined to become. Let your heart pay close attention to this, because the disruptions you've been experiencing lately are not chaos. They are alignment, and they are the direct response to prayers you whispered in moments you thought I didn't hear. You asked me for clarity, so I began revealing truths you weren't emotionally prepared to face. You asked me to remove what wasn't meant for you, so I started creating distance in relationships that once felt essential. You asked me to open new doors, so I redirected your steps away from environments that were too small for the future you're stepping into. You asked me to strengthen your spirit, so I brought you through moments that required you to confront fear with courage you didn't realize you possessed. You prayed for change, and now change is happening. But because it's unfolding in ways you didn't expect, you've mistaken my alignment for disruption. You've been trying to keep old structures intact, even as your spirit outgrows them. You've been trying to hold on to people who no longer align with the direction your life is moving. You've been trying to preserve routines that once made sense, even though they now drain your energy instead of restoring it. You've been clinging to versions of yourself that were built for survival, not purpose. And because you've been holding on to what I am loosening, the transition feels heavy and disorienting. But understand this. I am not tearing your life apart. I am rearranging it so that the future you asked me for has space to manifest. There are prayers you prayed out of desperation, prayers for peace, stability, clarity, and healing. And now that I am answering them, you're realizing that the path to peace requires releasing chaos. The path to clarity requires walking away from confusion. The path to stability requires removing instability. And the path to healing requires confronting truths you buried for years. What feels like loss is actually preparation. What feels like emptiness is actually cleansing. What feels like being pushed out is actually being positioned. You're stepping into a life you are finally strong enough to carry. But for that life to emerge, the foundation must be cleared of everything that contradicts where you're going. This is why certain opportunities fell apart. They were too small. This is why some relationships faded. They were seasonal. This is why old habits feel wrong. They no longer match your identity. You asked me to lead you into purpose. You asked me to elevate you. You asked me to heal you. This rearrangement is the answer. Trust what is shifting. Trust what is leaving. Trust what is arriving. Trust what feels uncomfortable. Alignment rarely feels gentle because it requires dismantling what no longer serves you. But on the other side of this rearranging is a life that mirrors the prayers you thought were forgotten. I am not disrupting you. I am positioning you for the very future you begged me to create. Let this truth be the grounding force your heart hath been searching for, because the sensation of losing control that has unsettled you recently is not a sign that your life is falling apart. It is a sign that the grip fear once had on your decisions is weakening, and your spirit is learning how to live without relying on fear as its guide. You spent years navigating life through caution, hyper-awareness, self-protection, and emotional bracing. You became accustomed to expecting the worst so that disappointment couldn't catch you off guard. You trained yourself to overthink so you could avoid imagined dangers. You held on to people, routines, and identities that felt predictable because predictability felt safer than growth. Fear became a structure you built your life around, not because you wanted to, but because it helped you survive seasons where you felt unprotected, unseen, or unsupported. But now, your spirit is shifting. You're no longer comfortable functioning from fear, not because fear disappeared, but because you've tasted moments of peace and purpose that fear cannot coexist with. And as fear loosens its grip, your mind perceives the change as instability. You feel disoriented because the emotional framework you relied on is dissolving. You're not losing control. You're losing the illusion that control is what kept you safe in the first place. And that illusion must fall, because the life you're stepping into is not powered by fear, it's powered by truth, presence, identity, and alignment. This transition feels like losing balance, because you've never walked this way before. You've never trusted this deeply. You've never released this fully. You've never allowed yourself to believe that peace can be your default instead of your reward. You've never experienced forward motion without bracing for impact. But this is where I am leading you. A life where fear is no longer your daily counselor, where anxiety no longer dictates your choices, where dread no longer shapes your routines, and where pressure no longer defines your worth. You are not spiraling. You are recalibrating. This is the part of transformation people rarely talk about, the part where everything familiar feels foreign, not because it's wrong, but because you are healing beyond the level that old patterns can sustain. The part where you stop running on adrenaline and begin learning how to live in peace. The part where you stop trying to predict pain and start learning how to receive joy. The part where you stop performing for acceptance and start realizing you were accepted long before you proved anything. What you're feeling is the release of fear, not the loss of control. What you're stepping into is trust, not vulnerability. What you're experiencing is freedom, not instability. Your life is not unraveling. It is being rewritten with a new foundation that does not require fear to function. You are being invited into a way of living that is lighter, truer, and far more aligned with the person I created you to be. Let your heart lean into this with honesty, because the healing you've been avoiding, the wounds you've tiptoed around, the memories you've tried not to revisit, the emotions you've pushed away, is the exact healing that will open the doors you've been begging me to open. You've prayed for freedom, yet you hesitate to face the very things that keep you bound. You've prayed for peace, yet you run from the moments that will require you to confront unrest. You've prayed for clarity, yet you avoid the deeper truths that would bring resolution. You're not avoiding healing because you don't want growth. You're avoiding it because you're scared of what it might reveal. You fear the pain beneath the surface, fear the old memories, fear the reality of letting go, fear the vulnerability required to heal something you kept tucked away for years. But avoiding healing doesn't protect you, it preserves the wound. And as long as the wound lies unaddressed, it quietly shapes your thoughts, your relationships, your choices, your confidence, and your identity. Healing feels terrifying because it threatens the emotional structures you've built to survive. Those structures were never wrong. They helped you endure seasons where you had no other tools. But they are no longer serving you. They are keeping you small, guarded, hesitant, and disconnected from the fullness of your potential. You've been navigating life with self-protective instincts that once saved you but now sabotage your peace. You fear that healing will break you, but the truth is this: the wound is what breaks you. The healing is what makes you whole. Inside you there is a deeper strength than you've recognized, strength born through every challenge you survived. Healing doesn't shrink that strength, it reveals it. You've been feeling emotional pressure lately, not because you're falling apart, but because your spirit is signaling that it's time to release what you've held for too long. The tension isn't punishment, it's a doorway. It's the old self loosening, the new self rising, the inner walls beginning to crack because who you're becoming can no longer remain confined behind them. Healing requires honesty. Honesty with yourself. Honesty with what hurt you. Honesty about what needs to change. And that honesty feels risky. But you must understand, I am not asking you to walk through this healing alone. Every difficult truth you face, I will carry with you. Every memory you revisit, I will hold your heart steady. Every layer you shed, I will strengthen you. Healing is not something I demand from you. It is something I offer to you. The life you've been praying for, a life of stability, clarity, purpose, emotional grounding, spiritual maturity, cannot grow on top of unhealed wounds. It must grow from healed ground. That is why I am leading you into this moment. Not to overwhelm you, but to free you. Not to expose your pain, but to release you from its grip. You're not stepping into healing to relive trauma. You're stepping into it to reclaim power. And on the other side of this process is a version of you that is lighter, clearer, stronger, and finally aligned with the life you've been reaching for. This healing is not your ending, it is your beginning. Bring your awareness into this moment, because the exhaustion you've been feeling is not a sign that you're weak. It is a sign that you've outgrown survival mode, and your spirit refuses to live one more day at a level you were never meant to remain in. You spent years operating from instinct, from scarcity, from defense, from vigilance. You learned to anticipate problems before they arose, to protect yourself emotionally even when no threat was present, to carry responsibilities alone because you believed no one else would step in, to do everything in your power to avoid collapse because collapse once meant danger. Survival mode shaped you because the world around you demanded it. But now, that world has changed, and you haven't yet realized your habits haven't changed with it. Survival mode was necessary once, but it has now become the barrier between you and the life I'm calling you into. It causes you to overthink when clarity is already present. It pushes you to assume the worst when the best is unfolding. It convinces you to stay small when expansion is calling. It keeps you guarded around people who want to support you. It makes you believe you can only rely on yourself when I've been placing help around you. It keeps you in a constant state of emotional bracing, as if something bad is always about to happen, even when peace is finally trying to settle into your life. You cannot live a purposeful life while operating with a survival mindset. Purpose requires presence, not panic. Growth requires openness, not guardedness. Strength requires rest, not constant vigilance. Healing requires surrender, not self-protection. And love, true love, requires vulnerability, not emotional withdrawal. This next chapter of your life will demand something survival mode cannot offer. Trust. Trust in me. Trust in the process. Trust in your discernment. Trust in the people I send. Trust in your healed identity. Trust in the strength I've been building within you. You feel tired because survival mode has reached its expiration date. Your spirit is rejecting what your habits are still clinging to. You're exhausted not because you're broken, but because you're functioning at a level beneath your calling. I'm pulling you upward. I am calling you into a season where your nervous system is not constantly braced for impact, where your heart is free to feel without fear, where your decisions come from peace instead of pressure, where your identity is shaped by truth rather than trauma. Survival mode kept you alive, but it cannot take you where you're destined to go. And this transition, from surviving to living, may feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable, but it is necessary. You deserve a life built from stability, purpose, and joy, not fear, exhaustion, and adrenaline. And as you release survival mode, you will discover what it means to truly live, not just endure. Your next chapter depends on it. Let this truth meet you exactly where you are, because the heaviness you felt pressing against your mind and heart is not a sign that you are failing. It is a sign that you are carrying weights that were never meant to remain on your shoulders. And I am now guiding you into the freedom of release. You have taken responsibility for pain that was never yours to nurse, for expectations that were never fair, for roles you stepped into out of necessity rather than desire, for emotional burdens you inherited without understanding. You've carried the weight of being strong when you were exhausted, being stable when you were hurting, being reliable when you had no one to rely on, being the one who held everything together even when your own heart felt fragile. Over time, you began believing that carrying everything alone was just part of who you are, part of your wiring, your purpose, your identity. But the truth is this: much of what you've been holding was never assigned to you in the first place. And the fatigue you feel is the evidence that your spirit is no longer willing to carry what your heart was not designed to sustain. There are burdens you learned to shoulder because you didn't want to disappoint anyone. There are weights you accepted because you believed you didn't have another choice. There are emotional responsibilities you embraced because silence felt safer than confrontation. But now, in the season of your life, I am bringing these burdens into your awareness not to overwhelm you, but to teach you how to release them. Letting go is not abandonment. It is alignment. It is honoring what is true. It is listening to the deeper wisdom rising within you. And I know releasing these burdens feels uncomfortable, almost disorienting, because you built an identity around being the one who could handle everything. But carrying everything is not strength. And knowing what is yours to carry and what is not, that is wisdom, and that is where I am leading you. As you begin to lay these burdens down, you will feel resistance inside yourself. Part of you will fear that others will be disappointed. Part of you will fear being misunderstood. Part of you will fear that letting go means losing control. But this release is not loss. It is liberation. It is the clearing of space within you for peace to settle, clarity to return, and joy to rise again. The more you release what was never yours, the more present you become to the life that is yours, your purpose, your relationships, your healing, your growth. You are not meant to navigate life buried under emotional overload. You are meant to walk with lightness, strength, and truth. And this chapter marks the moment you begin learning how to finally lay down what has been silently weighing you down for years. I am not asking you to drop everything in a single moment. I am teaching you to recognize the difference between burden and responsibility, between obligation and calling, between self-sacrifice and self-abandonment. As you release what was never meant for you, you will discover that surrender is not weakness. It is the key that unlocks the peace you have been searching for. Open your heart to what I am saying, because the quiet strength forming inside you is not random. It is preparation for a season where your voice will matter in ways it never has before. And that is why courage is being cultivated in you even through discomfort. You have spent much of your life speaking carefully, choosing your words with caution, shrinking your truth to keep peace, blending into environments that didn't deserve the depth of who you are. You learned to silence yourself to avoid conflict. You learned to soften your opinions to avoid judgment. You learned to downplay your discernment because others didn't understand it. And somewhere along the way, you began believing that your voice was a risk rather than a gift. But the season you are entering requires your voice, not the watered-down version, not the hesitant version, not the apologetic version, the grounded, aligned, confident version that rises when you stop allowing fear to edit what I placed inside you. Courage isn't built in moments of ease. It's formed through the tension you've been feeling, the tension between who you were and who you're becoming, between silence and expression, between remaining small and stepping into authority. You've been experiencing an internal nudge to speak up more, to express your boundaries, to clarify your needs, to articulate your truth, even when your voice shakes. This discomfort isn't punishment. It's stretching it. It's preparation. It's the forming of spiritual muscle around your words. Because soon, conversations will arise where your voice shifts the atmosphere. Decisions will come that require clarity rather than compliance. Opportunities will present themselves that require honesty rather than self-doubt. And I am strengthening your voice now so that when these moments arrive, you will not shrink. Your voice is part of your calling. Not just your speaking voice, but the voice of your spirit. The voice that discerns, the voice that sees beneath the surface, the voice that carries wisdom born from struggle, truth born from healing, and authority born from endurance. I know you still feel uncertain at times. I know you question whether you have the right to speak, the right to take up space, the right to assert your needs. But this doubt is part of the old identity that is dissolving. You're not stepping into arrogance, you're stepping into authenticity. And authenticity will require you to stand firm even when insecurity tries to pull you back. This next season of your life will require you to speak truth into rooms that need guidance, into relationships that need clarity, into situations that need direction. Your voice will matter, not because it is loud, but because it carries truth. Not because it demands attention, but because it carries presence. Not because others validate it, but because I placed it within you with purpose. And as I train you in courage now, you will soon witness how your voice becomes a catalyst for transformation, not only in your life, but in the lives of those connected to you. Your courage is growing. Your clarity is forming. Your voice is rising. And soon, you will understand why silence was never meant to be your story. Let your spirit lean into this moment, because the quiet you've been experiencing, whether it feels peaceful, unsettling, or strangely unfamiliar, is not an accident. It is my intentional clearing of the noise around you so you can finally hear the truth inside you that has been trying to rise for years. You've been surrounded by so many voices, expectations, obligations, opinions, assumptions, the lingering echoes of old wounds, that it became difficult to distinguish your own intuition from the external clutter. You've lived under the weight of trying to satisfy everyone's needs, trying to interpret everyone's moods, trying to meet standards that were never yours to begin with. And in that constant noise, your own truth became muted. Not gone, not forgotten, just buried beneath the emotional static of trying to keep everything together. This is why a strange quiet has entered your life. Conversations that once consumed your mind no longer hold the same grip. People who once demanded your emotional energy now feel distant. Environments that once occupied your attention have lost their pull. Even your own thoughts feel slower, less frantic, less reactive. This is not emptiness. It is clearing. I am removing the voices that drown out your clarity. I am silencing the distractions that kept you emotionally entangled. I am stripping away the noise that blurred your discernment. You are stepping into a level of spiritual hearing that requires internal stillness, and stillness cannot coexist with chaos. You've interpreted this quiet as isolation at times. You've wondered why certain connections feel faded, why certain conversations feel shallow, why certain relationships feel unresolved. But what feels like distance is actually refinement. You are being taught how to hear me, and how to hear yourself, without the interference of emotional clutter. You cannot build your next season on the confusion of the old one. Your clarity must come from within, not from the shifting voices around you. Inside you is a wisdom that has been forming through every hardship, every healed scar, every moment you chose truth over comfort. That wisdom is ready to speak, but it cannot rise when outside voices are louder than your inner voice. So I am quieting the noise. I am closing doors that drain you. I am reducing your emotional load. I am slowing the pace of your thoughts. I am removing the unnecessary so the essential can finally breathe. This quiet will not last forever. It is a sacred transition, a recalibration of your inner world. And once your spirit is steady again, once your identity is clear, once your inner voice becomes recognizable, you will begin hearing me and yourself with a depth you have never experienced. You are not being silenced. You are being refined. And the truth that emerges from this quiet will lead you into decisions that align with your destiny, not your fears. Let this truth anchor you, because the strength rising within you, the subtle confidence, the returning clarity, the renewed energy, is not a momentary surge. It is the early evidence of the person you are becoming, a version of you shaped not by fear but by the transformation happening beneath the surface. You've noticed shifts inside yourself that even you struggle to explain. You've been handling situations that once overwhelmed you. You've been recovering from emotional hits faster than you expected. You've been recognizing unhealthy dynamics sooner. You've been speaking up more, holding boundaries with greater ease, sensing truth more quickly, and choosing peace over chaos with increasing confidence. These changes may seem subtle, but they are monumental. They are signs that your spirit has turned a corner. This strength isn't loud. It isn't forceful. It isn't showy. It's quiet, steady, rooted. It's the kind of strength that has been formed through years of endurance, through experiences that demanded resilience, through moments that forced you to look deeper than your pain. You didn't develop this strength overnight. It has been forming silently in the background of your life, rising each time you survived something you thought would break you, each time you chose growth over comfort, each time you refused to settle for what didn't honor your worth. You sometimes question whether this new strength is real or temporary, whether you will hold on to it or eventually slip back into old habits. But hear me, what you are feeling is not a phase. It is identity. It is a new internal foundation being laid brick by brick through every healing moment, every courageous decision, every emotional breakthrough. Your spirit is learning how to stand in truth without collapsing. Your heart is learning how to trust without bracing for pain. Your mind is learning how to believe in possibilities instead of catastrophes. These shifts are not accidental, they are transformational. There will still be moments of vulnerability. There will still be days where you feel uncertain or overwhelmed. Strength doesn't remove humanity, but the difference now is that you are no longer collapsing under pressure. You are stabilizing. You are grounding. You are recognizing your ability to navigate challenges with clarity rather than panic. This strength will continue to grow, deepening with each decision you make in alignment with your healing rather than your fears. The version of you emerging out, the version life tried to silence, the version pain tried to bury, the version insecurity tried to diminish. And yet here you are, stronger than the battles you fought, stronger than the doubts you carried, stronger than the wounds you survived. This strength is your new baseline, your new normal, your new identity. Let it rise. Let it settle. Let it become the foundation for everything that comes next. Let this truth meet you with both challenge and comfort, because the future you're hesitant to believe in, the one that feels distant, fragile, or almost too good to hope for, is already being formed quietly around the decisions you're making in this very season. You often imagine your future as something that will arrive suddenly, a moment where everything shifts overnight, a breakthrough that descends in one dramatic sweep. But that is not how destiny builds itself. Destiny is crafted through the hidden choices you make when no one is watching, the boundaries you strengthen, the habits you refine, the emotions you confront, the relationships you release, the truth you choose to stand in even when it terrifies you. You've convinced yourself that your future is shaped by grand external events, but in reality, it is shaped by small internal agreements, moments where you decide, sometimes quietly, sometimes painfully, that you will no longer betray who you are becoming just to protect who you used to be. What you don't see yet is how every recent shift, every moment of honesty, every act of courage, every small decision to choose peace over chaos, is laying down the architecture of your next chapter. You've been thinking your future depends on opportunities, timing, or divine intervention, yet much of it has already begun through your willingness to grow past the limits you once accepted. These choices may feel subtle, almost invisible, but they are recalibrating the direction of your life. Every time you refuse to settle for what drains you, you reinforce a future of emotional alignment. Every time you choose rest over self-abandonment, you reinforce a future of stability. Every time you speak your truth, even shakily, you reinforce a future where you no longer shrink to fit into spaces that diminish you. You are building your future with decisions that require emotional strength, not outward applause. You hesitate to believe in this future because fear still lingers from seasons where you hoped too soon, trusted too deeply, or reached too far only to feel disappointed. You fear disappointment more than you fear stagnation. You fear being wrong more than you fear being stuck. But your spirit already knows that belief is not naivete, it is alignment. The future that is forming doesn't require you to be perfect. It requires you to be present. It requires you to keep choosing truth over ease, healing over denial, and growth over familiarity. The discomfort you feel is not a sign that you're off course. It's a sign that you're rebuilding yourself in real time. If you could see what I see, you would trust this process without hesitation. You would see the doors aligning, the relationships being prepared, the opportunities waiting for your readiness, the healing unfolding with precision. You would understand that nothing you're doing right now is wasted. Nothing is random. Nothing is small. You are weaving the beginnings of a future that reflects your truest identity. Believe in it, not because it is guaranteed, but because it is already taking shape inside you. Let this understanding settle deeply inside you, because the reason your life has felt tight, misaligned, or strangely incompatible with what once felt normal is that your transformation is no longer subtle. It is becoming undeniable, and the world around you is struggling to contain the person you're evolving into. You've been sensing a shift that feels both empowering and disorienting. You notice that old environments feel smaller, old conversations feel shallow, and old versions of yourself feel like distant memories rather than current identities. The places you once fit into effortlessly now feel restrictive. The habits that once comforted you now feel out of sync with your spirit. Even your own thoughts are expanding, stretching into territories you once considered unreachable. This is not instability. This is transformation. And transformation doesn't ask for permission. It demands space. Your identity is evolving in ways you didn't anticipate. You're becoming someone who no longer tolerates emotional clutter, someone who values peace over approval, someone who recognizes subtle red flags before they escalate, someone who trusts inner wisdom over external noise. These shifts are not coincidences. They are signs that the deeper work within you is taking root. You may not notice it daily, but your spirit has become sharper. Your discernment has become clearer. Your emotional endurance has strengthened. And because the transformation is real, anything that contradicts it becomes increasingly uncomfortable. A discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sign that something is right. When you grow beyond a season, that season begins to resist you. When you elevate your standards, misalignment becomes obvious. When you heal, dysfunction becomes intolerable. When you rise in truth, environments built on silence or avoidance cannot hold you. You are shedding layers that once protected you but now limit you, and the shedding is making room for the version of you that is finally strong enough to live the life you've been quietly longing for. You feel this tug of war inside because part of you is tempted to shrink back into what's familiar, while another part, the truer part, is refusing to return to anything that requires self-abandonment. The conflict isn't a sign of regression. It's a sign that your new identity is gaining dominance. And soon, the old version of you will no longer feel like an option. You won't be able to unsee the truth you now carry. You won't be able to unknow the wisdom you've gained. You won't be able to silence the strength rising inside you. You are transforming from the inside out, and the shift is becoming visible, not just to you, but to the people around you. Some will celebrate it. Some may fear it. Some may distance themselves because your growth challenges their stagnation. But none of that should stop you. Transformation requires courage, and you have more of it than you realize. Your life no longer fits the way it used to because you no longer fit the way you used to. You are expanding. You are evolving. You are awakening. And the world around you will soon have to make room for who you are becoming. Amen.